Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen hacks her cousin's Roblox account. Am I the jerk for threatening to kick out my niece after she hacked my daughter's Roblox account? I'm 38 female. My daughter, who's 13, has been playing this game called Roblox since lockdown first started as a way of playing with her friends virtually as well as curing her boredom. She was obsessed with this Roblox game that's set in a school because she missed her friends so much and it allowed her to stay connected with them. Her interest in video games has developed into an interest into technology. She's by far at the top of her IT class and has even started learning how to code in order to make her own game. My sister, who's 34, and my niece, who's 10, have recently had to move in with us after my sister discovered that her husband was having an affair. They're staying at my house for the time being while she saves up money for a place of their own. My niece and daughter usually get along fine, and they both bond over their interest in Roblox. But last week, my daughter was completely distraught and she wouldn't stop crying. She said that she saw her cousin playing on a Roblox game and realized her cousin's avatar had a lot more items than usual. She decided to join her only to realize that her account had been hacked and she had lost nearly every item she had on her favorite Roblox game. She had lost 800,000 worth of in-game currency and nearly her entire inventory, which she claimed was worth over 5 million of the in-game currency. She had spent the last 4 years saving up for those items and everything was gone just like that. My daughter began accusing my niece of hacking her account. My niece denied it at first, but quickly broke under pressure and admitted to everything. The previous day, they had been playing the game together when I called them down to dinner. My niece has only been playing for a few months, and I suppose that she would be considered a noob. She begged my daughter to give her some of her items, and my daughter refused, saying that she should earn the items herself. When my daughter came downstairs, my niece decided to stay behind for a minute to transfer all of my daughter's items into her account. I tried to mediate the situation, but my sister is refusing to cooperate. She told me that it's just a game. It's not like my daughter spent real money on it. I attempted to explain just how much this game means to my daughter, to which my sister said that my daughter should count herself lucky that her biggest problem is a bunch of pixels on a screen. She said my daughter was a teenager now and was too old to be acting this immature over a game. My niece refuses to give my niece her stuff back and says it's unfair that my daughter gets to have everything she wants, both in real life and online. I told my sister and niece that both of them were acting like ungrateful brats, considering how I was letting them stay at my house rent-free. Today I gave her an ultimatum. If my niece doesn't return everything she hacked from my daughter's account, they would both have 1 week to leave. I told her that I refused to let anyone disrespect my daughter under my roof. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I'm getting so tired of people telling other people that they are too old to love the things they love. Let people enjoy the things they want to and enjoy life. It doesn't matter if your daughter is too old for the game or if she didn't spend any real money on the items. What matters is that your niece stole from your daughter and your sister wants to give her no repercussions for this action. How much longer until your niece decides that it's not fair that your daughter has something else that she doesn't have and takes it from you? Or that you have something that she doesn't and takes that? Theft is theft, and if your sister doesn't put a stop to this now, it can start a slippery slope, especially since your niece has seen that she has her mother's approval. Yes, your niece has been given a raw deal, but that's no excuse to steal, especially from someone who not only had nothing to do with why she has this situation, but who was sharing her home to try to help her out. Both your niece and your sister have taken advantage of your hospitality and broken your trust. Not the jerk. When I was your niece's age, I had a friend come over who was upset at my brother for something and deleted his game off of Ocarina of Time. She wasn't allowed over again. Stealing is stealing, even when one person says the value is 0. I organized a student protest against a teacher. This happened decades ago, back in primary school. I only remembered it because I was recently catching up with some old friends from back then, and we got to laughing over old stories, and then someone mentioned the wildest was when you organized that whole protest against our teacher. The consensus was I did, indeed, organize the entire class to rebel against our teacher that resulted in her being deposed and our class getting a substitute for the rest of the year. I almost fell out of my chair hearing this story from their mouths. It wasn't that I didn't remember it, of course I did. That year was awful. It was just that it existed very differently in my memory. 2 important pieces of background knowledge to understand here. 1. I went to a very small, very rural school. How small? Each classroom was composed of the entire year level, and the largest had at most 30 kids in them. My class level was on the smallest in the entire school, with only 14 kids altogether. While we still had our cliques and factions, our small size caused our class to be very tight-knit and protective of each other. How rural? The school building itself was incredibly small, but one thing we were not short on was gigantic empty fields surrounding us on all sides. Great for sports and great for student protests. 2. I was, at the time, undiagnosed autistic, and now I'm formally diagnosed. But back then, I was just seen as being a very quirky kid. One of the ways this quirkiness manifested was that I really had trouble adapting to the rules and structures of grade school and how it differed from what I was used to. At home, if I wanted to go to the bathroom, I just went. Now I have to put my hands up? Now I have to ask permission to go to the bathroom? So then I went and put my hand up to ask my mom for permission to go to the bathroom, and she told me I didn't have to. Madness, chaos. I don't care what the rules are. Please just be consistent. But one of the main parts of my brain and the way it works is that sometimes my brain, separate from my will, would just make a decision about a course of action, and I would very calmly commit to it no matter what. Like, it's vitally important that I stay true to this course of action. I can't explain it. It's like I set a rule for myself, and if something disrupts that, I just shut down and stop functioning. So when the school said, "Okay, when this bell rings during recess or lunch, that means you have to leave the playground and go back to class," I was a confused kid already struggling with these completely nonsense limitations and guidelines imposed on me. So when that bell rang, I got that calm little voice in my head that said, "No, I'm good out here actually. I don't think I'll go back into class." So I would just continue to sit on the playground, playing with my plastic spider toys or sitting on the swing. Teachers would realize what was going on and come out to get me and tell me that I have to go back to class, but I would just very calmly hear them out and then smile at them and politely as possible tell them, "No thank you, I want to stay out here." They really didn't know what to do with me. I wasn't getting upset, I wasn't throwing a tantrum, I wasn't yelling, I wasn't being rude in any way. I was incredibly docile and would let them explain things to me with endless patience and then just politely refuse them and go back to whatever I was doing. Like, this was just a very normal and reasonable negotiation between two equal parties. I have memories of sitting on the swing while 3 very confused and flustered adult staff huddled around me trying to bribe me with candy to go back to class. It would take a whole lesson block to lure me back to the classroom, and then at lunch the whole thing would start over again. It took me 3 years at school to finally accept the status quo thanks to a teacher that I had. I was never happy about it though. I eventually settled into school life, excelled at subjects I liked, at least passed the subjects I didn't, followed the rules, was seen as intelligent and obedient, and was often liked by my teachers. Until my final year, when we got the teacher I can only rudely moniker Mrs. Big Mouth. Mrs. Big Mouth should not have been a teacher. She had a triggered temper and would explode into long, crazy tirades against us if we did anything she felt was disrespectful. What did she consider disrespectful? Darned if I know. It changed day by day depending on her mood. You could disrespect her to her face one day and she'd laugh and say you have such razor wit, and politely ask a question the next day and she'd scream at you for 10 non-stop minutes, then give you a week of detention for talking back. The absolute peak moment of her boiling temper came when she threw a dictionary at a student who was whispering to me in class. When I tell you that it missed her by half an inch, I mean it. But believe it or not, this wasn't what made her such an awful teacher. It was so hard to get teachers at rural schools back then. There was almost nothing you could do to get fired, so we had experience with teachers with nightmare tempers. What made her such an issue was her big mouth. She used us, her trapped audience, as free therapy. She would info dump, trauma dump about her very personal, very private life to us, all day. She'd be 2 words into a spelling list and launch into an extended story session about her marital issues with her husband. We'd be working on fractions, and unprompted, she'd declare to the class that her adult daughter no longer talks to her, and then diatribe to us about it until the bell rang. She had money issues, a contentious relationship with her parents, her marriage was on the rocks. She once pulled me aside after school and spoke with me, at length, about how she was thinking of having another baby to try to repair her marriage. I was like, "Okay, lady, I'm 11, about to miss my bus, and my house is a 4-hour walk on foot from here." We weren't learning. We hadn't had a complete lesson since the first week of the school year. We were behind on the curriculum and frustrated. One kid had brought a stopwatch into school and would time lessons versus her monologues and kept detailed lists, and we would come to school each morning and do betting pools on them. What subjects would she interrupt? What would she talk about? And how long would it go on? But all that still wasn't the breaking point, if you can believe it or not. The problem was it wasn't just her own private life she couldn't keep her mouth shut about. It was everyone else's. Because parents would make the reasonable assumption that she should be told things as our class teacher that would be important to know, and that she would understand that these things were said in confidence. Instead, she would veer randomly off in the middle of talking to us about her horrible weekend to let us know whatever kind of private things were going on in a classmate's life that she had been made aware of. That was awful. That was what made that year horrible. It wasn't even about when my secrets were shared with the entire class. It was about watching the faces of my lovely, supportive classmates as they held back tears as things they never wanted to share with anyone were announced like morning news. We couldn't stand her. Then one day that voice came along. The one I hadn't heard in years. The bell rang to go back into class, and that voice said, "But I don't want to be in that classroom. I'm not even being taught there." So I just didn't go back to class. I just sat on the playground in a daze eating grass. Don't eat grass, it's not good for your teeth. Despite how small my class was, I don't think Mrs. Big Mouth even noticed I wasn't there. Others did though. Come lunch and everyone came out. My friends asked me where I was, and I said, "Oh, I didn't go back to class." "Well, why didn't you?" "Why would I?" Light bulb moment for my classmates. Yeah, why would they go back to class either? What was the point? From a practical standpoint, they weren't learning. From an emotional standpoint, it was horrible to be there. A friend who had her family's dirty laundry aired to the entire class just last week, things even she didn't know her parents were going through, asked if she could sit with me rather than go back to class. I just stared at her, vacant and confused. Sure, I'm just eating grass. Over the next few days, 2 kids turned into 4. 4 turned into 10. Then it turned into the entire class. The whole class was doing a sit-out protest on the field rather than going back to class. Of course, Mrs. Big Mouth tried to do something about it. She had come out, screaming at us and threatening us with detention and internal suspension. But 6 months of her crap had turned us all against her. I'd become the de facto leader and spokesperson of the protest by merit of being the first to sit out, and also because I was well known to not give a hoot. I gave her the exact same treatment from back in grade 1. I would let her scream, let her holler, let her threaten, and then I would give her a sweet and innocent smile and nod in acknowledgement and say, "No thank you, we're going to remain out here." And 13 pairs of eyes would stare at her in total silence. No one, not even the most gobber-mouthed jerk in the class, would volunteer a word. The unspoken agreement was all negotiations were my responsibility. The thing about angry people is that they feed off conflict. They get you angry so that they can respond with even more anger, and it nourishes them. She had no plan of action on how to deal with me patiently hearing her out, then refuting her in the gentlest of terms. Another thing that ended up helping down the line is that we made an attempt to conduct our own classes. They sucked, and we didn't learn much because we were kids with no supervision, but it was really cute in retrospect. We'd have groups of people assigned to subjects, with some people bringing in words they found in a dictionary for spelling lists, and others bringing in old 6th grade homework from older siblings. The heart was there, and it served a purpose, if not educational. Okay, but how did no one else notice this was happening? Surely people would notice 14 kids sitting on the lawn, not in class. Rural school, big, empty fields. Even screaming at us, the most other classrooms would hear would be muffled voices, and everyone was used to hearing her yelling or taking us out onto the field abruptly to make us do laps as group punishment. Plus, the way the school buildings were arranged was that it was actually all in one straight line of adjacent rooms, and ours happened to be at the very end of the building. No windows faced the field we all sat in, except that of our own classroom. It was just a very lucky arrangement of coincidences and preconceived notions, at least for a couple of weeks. I couldn't tell you the exact number. This was so long ago, and as a kid, I definitely had a more stretched idea of time. Minutes felt like hours, especially during that year. But there was definitely at least 2 weekends that got passed by since the sit-out protest started. Eventually, someone caught on to what was happening, or maybe Mrs. Big Mouth humbled herself and finally confessed to her boss that she had lost control of a bunch of 11-year-olds. So we were called into the principal's office to sort this out. As the representative of our class, I was of course chosen to attend the meeting. Since I understood I was probably going to be yelled at for doing nothing wrong, I felt the easiest way to mitigate things was to explain in a very rational and logical way the series of events that led up to our bad behavior. As well, for my entire life, my mother had always taught me that it was no good complaining about things unless you were also willing to think of solutions. So I interviewed my class one by one to hear each individual story of why they didn't feel comfortable going to class anymore. Itemized them under categories for easier discussion because my little quirky brain loved itemizing things. So we got the rest of the week off school. That weekend, every parent of every student came to a meeting between them, Mrs. Big Mouth, and the principal. Stories were swapped. My exercise book with my tidy little lists and records of our betting pool and monologue times were confiscated and brought into the meeting. I don't know what went down, but when my mother came home, she just told me that Mrs. Big Mouth would not be our problem for the rest of the school year, and more importantly, that she was incredibly proud of me and that I did the right thing. Rarely in my childhood had my inability to integrate into normal society led to me doing the right thing, so I just remember crying and hugging her and feeling vindicated about, I don't know, just existing or something. So yeah, from the outside perspective, this was what it looked like. I kind of learned to parse the difference between when it's appropriate to go along with set societal rules, even if I don't understand them. And years later, I did lead an actual, very small strike at work, but intentionally that time. My mother was proud of me then too. Am I the jerk for telling my ex-wife's fiance the truth about our divorce? I'm 33 male. My ex-wife, who's 30, and I got divorced 3 years ago. In college, we worked at the same restaurant. That's where we met. We were together for 7 years and married for a little over 3.5. We divorced because she cheated twice. 2 years into our marriage, I discovered she was having an affair with a former classmate. I collect enough evidence and confront her. She confessed everything. The affair was about 2 months long. This was a really terrible time and was really hard to work through it with her. You can call me an idiot, but I'm a forgiving person. I do believe in second chances and that people can change. We agreed to reconcile. We did the work, we had marriage counseling, we read some of the books. She went no contact with her classmate right away, open phone policy, we told our parents. She was doing the right things and our relationship was recovering. 1 year into our reconciliation, her aunt passed. I'm very busy with work and can't attend the services as they're on Thursday and Friday back in her hometown, 5 hours away. Her parents and brother no longer live there, so she stayed with a good friend from high school. I had met this friend a few times and I was comfortable with that. On Saturday morning, my wife texted me that the car was loaded and she was about to start making the drive home. About an hour after that, I got a Facebook message from the friend who stated she wouldn't be able to go on with herself if she just let this go, but informed me that my wife had gone out Friday night with some old friends from high school. The friend thought nothing of this until she discovered my wife had left her phone behind and that she didn't come back until the following morning. I'd gotten a text that Friday night from my wife that she was going to bed early since the past few days had been emotionally draining. I confronted my wife soon as she got home. She was really hesitant to tell me anything, so I lied to her and told her if we were going to work through this, I needed to know everything like the last time. That got her to confess that she had gone out and had gone home with an old friend from high school. She said they didn't actually hook up, but they did do other things that I won't go into detail here. It didn't matter. Once I got enough of the truth, I left for my parents' house. That week, my dad called my landlord and paid all the termination fees and got me out of the lease. We went and got my stuff while she was at work. My parents set me up with a friend of theirs that was a divorce attorney and he cut me a deal. It took about 7 months for divorce to go final. That was 3 years ago. I have an awesome girlfriend now and I'm doing well. This past weekend, I got a Facebook message from a guy who is now engaged to my ex-wife. He introduced himself and said he was probably just being crazy, but he wanted to know why we had gotten divorced. He said he had broached the subject a few times and she always gets weird. She had told him that we had divorced because we grew apart, but mostly she just deflects or is really vague. I told him the truth and offered evidence if he would like. He declined and thanked me for my time and story. A day later, I get a phone call from a local but unknown number. I answer and it's my ex-wife. She's really upset and asking me why I'm trying to ruin her future. I get her to calm down and talk. She says her fiance has asked for some space and is staying with his parents this week, but he's saying he needs to reevaluate their relationship. She wants to know why I told him all about her past and why I'm still punishing her. She tells me she's not that person anymore and has done all this work and been in therapy, that she deserves another chance and I'm being petty and hateful. There were a few general insults thrown in too. I got upset and told her that if she really changed for the better, she would have been upfront with him about our past and owned up to cheating in her prior marriage, and then gone about showing her fiancé that she was ready to be a worthy partner to him, unlike she was with me. Instead, she tried to lie and hide the truth, and now it's blowing up in her face again. She said a few choice words, then hung up. I haven't heard anything since. I told my girlfriend, and she reassured how I handled it, but I find myself feeling guilty. I still believe in second chances and that people can change. While I would have felt wrong lying to the guy, I wonder if I should have handled the whole thing differently or just not responded. If she's truly different and this is just a blip, I don't want to be the one that prevents her from finding happiness, but also believe I'm not what's hurting her engagement. Am I the jerk? Her fiance called you and asked you what happened. You are under no obligation to lie to him for her sake. As a matter of fact, anything that you told him besides the truth would be suspect, as you have no idea what she told him. Don't feel bad. She's only feeling the consequences of her actions, not the jerk. Not the jerk. Imagine if you had lied to the guy and said you had just grown apart. Would you want that on your conscience? I would have told him too, rather than been part of a lie that will lead to someone else getting hurt. She hasn't changed at all. Not the jerk. I'm like you. I would feel guilty because at a glance it seems like being honest about your experience caused your ex to potentially lose her relationship. However, you're holding yourself accountable for someone else's actions. Your ex cheated. Your ex withheld information from her current partner. Your ex is still avoiding accountability. You are not responsible for her actions. Anything that happens in her relationship is her problem, not yours. Update. Last night, I received a very long text from my ex-wife. I'll summarize it below. She started off by apologizing for the way she talked to me the other day and said I didn't deserve to be insulted like that. She then went on to explain herself and her situation. She started by acknowledging that this whole situation wasn't my concern or business and apologized for me being drawn into it and said she was embarrassed that their issues were being aired out. She said it was her fault this happened. Since she began dating her fiancé, she has hidden the details of our marriage out of shame and guilt. For the most part, it was never brought up until he proposed a couple months ago. That's when he first really asked and seemed to want to know. She said she wasn't ready to deal with that and kept trying to rug sweep it, but he persisted. That is when she started therapy. She never thought he would reach out to me though. She then stated that none of this was my fault and apologized for blaming me. She said she should have faced this a long time ago, gotten therapy for ruining our marriage, and come to terms with her own feelings of guilt. Then she apologized for her affairs and the way I was treated during our marriage. The last part was just her stating that she was not expecting a response back, wishing me the best, and saying that hopefully her and her fiancé will never bother me again. This morning when I got up and read this, I sent back a brief message. I appreciate the apologies and I'm glad you're working on yourself. I've moved on from what happened and hope you can move on from this. The only bit of advice I have is I think this text needs to go to your fiancé. She responded back just by saying thank you and that he received far more and far longer texts. I doubt there will ever be another update. I actually hope there isn't. I don't believe in closure, but I will say it was refreshing to hear her apologize without an asterisk. That's what I always got before, the "I'm so sorry, I just drank too much," and "I'm so sorry, I was just really depressed and stressed," and doesn't mean a whole lot really. Maybe just unexpected for me, but it was nice to hear an apology that has no excuse trailing behind it. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day now and leave all this behind me. Wanted to address a small set of commenters from the first post though. I had several people hung up on the fact that my dad paid my termination fee and got me out of my lease. He did that of his own accord to take a lot of the stress of the separation off me. I included that to show I had a support system that was behind me and willing to help in any way, no questions asked. It really helped me through the healing process and I got back on my feet pretty quickly. I'm sorry if you don't have anyone there for you when you're at your lowest, but it doesn't make you better or manlier or whatever you were going for when you made those comments. Having to face any and every challenge on your own is really just kind of a sad existence in my opinion. I hope that changes for you and that you'll find someone to be in your corner someday. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for birthday presents for my son that he can only use at my ex-wife's place? I'm 52, male, recently separated from my ex who's 49 of 18 years. We share custody, week on, week off, with our 2 kids, my daughter who's 13 and son who's soon to be 15. The relationship ended mostly amicably. No one cheated on each other, as far as I know. We just drifted apart, friend-zoned. When we split, we agreed that I would stay in our old 4-bedroom family home for a few more years while our kids were still at high school. We lived right next door to my son's high school. I would continue to pay down our mortgage on my own and also pay for any additional renovations on my own that we still had left to complete since buying the place 4 years ago. When the time comes to sell, she will get her 50%. She agreed to move out into her own 3-bedroom rental out by the beach. I'm paying her child support as she only earns about 1/3 of what I do in her part-time, 30-hour-a-week job. The rest of her income comes from government social support. We have a joint bank account where we both put money in to cover the kids' general needs. This week is my son's 15th birthday. He's big into gaming, basketball, and fishing. When he moves between our two places, he brings his Xbox with him. I've paid for 2 computer monitors, one at each property, just so he can do this easily and be happy. He has a homemade basketball hoop that he helped me build and paint for him when he was a young 10-year-old lad, mounted on the outside of my house for him to practice whenever he stays with me. My ex emailed me to ask what I think we should get him for his birthday, aka share costs for. She listed 2 things. Firstly, a freestanding basketball hoop and a gaming chair, all up around $1,000 total, both to be used only at her place for his enjoyment there. I've refused to help her buy these particular options. I'd prefer it if we spent our money on something that he'll enjoy getting the benefits from wherever he may be, like new clothes, a new device, a new bike, fishing gear, etc., or a shared family experience with both of us present. I thought that was reasonable. My ex-wife thinks I'm being a jerk with this stance for not agreeing to pay anything for these particular presents to help furnish her house or his bedroom there. She's suggesting that it's not fair that he can play basketball at my place and not hers, or that he feels more comfortable playing video games at my place and not hers. Now she's accusing me of starting to play some petty game with her by not fairly contributing enough towards my son's happiness on his birthday. My fear is that I am indeed being unnecessarily picky with this battle, being too selfish, and denying her the right to be able to make her home as happy or as comfortable as mine for my son to live in. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. First off, he's 15. You don't need we presents. Secondly, it's convenient that she wants you to pay for something he already has at your house to be installed at her home, and a second gift for her space. You're the jerk, because you're not thinking of it in terms of what would make your son happy. He likes to play basketball. If he can only play basketball at your house, that's a whole week at a time where he can't enjoy a physical activity when he's at his mom's. Expensive gaming chairs are ridiculous purchases. You can play a video game sitting pretty much anywhere, and if you're sitting there so long that your body starts to ache, it's time to put down the controller and do something else anyway, like play basketball. In my opinion, you should get the hoop, but not the chair. Look at it like a compromise. Agreed. With his logic, why would anyone buy anyone a gift if you don't see the recipient enjoying it in your own house? It's weird to have strings attached on a gift. It's kind of sad that the dad isn't prioritizing the idea that it's nice to have his kid feel comfortable under both roofs, and not like he's prevented from doing his hobbies in one of their houses. Maybe a good compromise would be for the dad to get the new chair for his house, and the old one can be brought to the mom's house. Why doesn't the mom prioritize making her kid feel better in her home? That's her responsibility now. OP is doing it at his house, which is technically still half hers. She should be able to do it at her house. Seems like she's trying, but she doesn't make as much money as OP. It did say that her email stated that these gifts would be shared expenses, so she's not relying on him to pay all of it, just part of it. The lady makes $30,000 a year. She wants to get her teenage son a birthday gift worth $1,000. The chances of this being split equally are non-existent. And frankly, while a split gift that makes the kid's life better at both homes is a nice idea, I think OP needs to get on board with that. $1,000 is an absurd amount. And if that was OP's objection, that would be fine. But he's not objecting to the cost. He's objecting to the idea of his son using his gift at his mom's house, which is just being petty. Focus on making your kid happy. If this is what he wants, then get him that. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex-wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for not buying a 10% engagement ring? My partner and I have been talking about getting engaged for the last year or so. I have quite a good job, so I could easily afford an expensive engagement ring, and if I was following the 10% rule, then I should spend around $10,000 to $15,000 on the ring. However, my parents, sister, and nephew have all been sick this year, so I was financially supporting all of them for a while. My sister lost her job, so I'm still supporting her a bit, and my job has announced that they will be laying off around 150 people next year. And while I feel confident that I'm not one of them, I don't want to guarantee it either. So long story short, I spent about $3,000 on a nice little white gold ring with diamonds and a sapphire, her birthstone. Initially, she was very happy with it until her mother, a jeweler, called it cheap. She has since given it back to me and accused me of undervaluing her and what she does for me. She's a stay-at-home mom to our 18-month-old and does the majority of the cooking and cleaning because I work long hours. I feel like crap, to be honest. She's refusing to talk to me. Her parents are accusing me of using her and treating her like cheap trash. I've tried to explain my point of view, but they won't listen and are demanding on at least 10% ring. Am I the jerk for the ring I bought? Edited to add that while her mom is a jeweler by trade and training, she's no longer working in the industry due to an issue with her wrists, carpal tunnel or something. I'm not 100% sure. So she wasn't in a position to help with the ring. Edit. I've answered this several times in the comments, so might as well put it in here too. Their concerns aren't based on any form of concern about financial insecurity, as I pay her to be a stay-at-home mom. She gets $450 a week to spend however she likes or save. I happen to know that she has over $40,000 in her personal savings account. This was my idea after the birth of our son when she suggested going back to work. I didn't think it would be a good idea. Her old job paid her $350 a week for full-time work. Full-time childcare and house cleaners would cost around $300 to $400 depending on the time of the year. To me, it made more sense for her to stay at home and bond with our son than to spend the equivalent of her income on childcare and cleaning. I did discuss ring styles with my partner before buying the ring. She wanted a sapphire surrounded by diamonds, like Princess Diana's ring. I also noticed that she preferred pear-cut stones, so I had a sapphire custom cut into a pear shape and placed into a diamond halo on a white gold band. There's little to no chance that I was overcharged because it was done in conjunction with two jewelers and I had it independently appraised for insurance reasons afterwards. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. You sure you want to marry her, buddy boy? Sounds like those in-laws are going to control your marriage for the rest of your life. Karen goes to a tattoo shop. Maybe 10 years ago, I owned a tattoo shop that was located next door, same strip mall, to a piercing shop. I had gone next door to watch the lobby for the piercer while they had ran and grabbed some change. So Karen walks in, and I get why she thinks I work there. I'm sitting behind the counter. Karen: I was here last week, and you messed up my piercing. It's infected now, and I need you to fix it. Me: I don't work here. I'm just… No, it was you. I remember your tattoos. Look. She proceeds to show me her navel piercing, swollen over the cheap, crappy jewelry. Obviously not from the upscale shop where I was currently at, and covered in yellow crust. Me: the piercer will be right back. He just went… No, you messed it up, and now you're going to fix it. I'm not dealing with anyone else. They shouldn't have to fix your mistakes. Me: I don't work here. I haven't done a piercing in years. I'm sure the piercer will be happy to… Are you calling me a liar? I remember you. I don't want some guy touching me. Mind you, the only piercers who worked there at the time were men. You need to help me, or I'm going to have to go to the hospital and have this thing surgically removed, and then I will have to sue you for my medical bills. Me: since I'm not a piercer, and I don't know for sure, but that thing looks pretty gross, maybe you should go to the hospital and get it checked out. Karen: I'm not going to the hospital. You're going to fix it. You messed it up. I need this fixed today. Me: okay, fill out this form and we will see what can be done. I was tired of dealing with her. I just wanted her to stop talking. The piercing shop had a long release form that everyone had to fill out, so I gave her one of those to keep her busy till the piercer returned. While she was working on the form, the piercer returned. I explained that she was upset and had an issue with her navel, and then snuck out the back door to return to my much quieter tattoo shop. Maybe 10 minutes pass, and guess who walks into my shop? Karen: I want to get a tattoo done today. This lady acted like she had never met me before. No mention of me being in the other shop or anything. Me: I'm sorry, I'm busy today. We are booked out for several months and not able to take any new clients for a while. Karen: I want… Proceeds to describe a fairly large and detailed tattoo. I can't recall of what. I know how much tattoos cost, so I don't intend to overpay. Me: there's no way I can tattoo you today, and I'm about to clock up for lunch. Karen goes through the gate that separates the lobby from the tattoo station, sits down on my massage table, and holds out $40. How long do you think this will take? Can I use your phone? I have to call my husband and tell him when I'll be home. Me, in a kind of stern voice. I'm super non-confrontational, so this was weird for me. Ma'am, you have to leave. You're not getting tattooed here today. I'm not taking new clients, and you've been kind of rude both here and next door, and I just plain don't want your business. Karen: here, holds out $40 again. You're not busy now, so I don't see what the problem is. How do you even stay open if you refuse to tattoo anyone? Here! Again with the $40. Me, kind of angry at this point. We tattoo plenty of people. I just won't be tattooing you. You're demanding a $400 tattoo for $40 when I'm already booked and you were rude to me next door. Please take your stuff. She had emptied her purse on the table to show pics similar to the tattoo she wanted and leave. I'm trying to get lunch before my next appointment. Karen, I don't mind waiting. Me, totally annoyed and kind of rude. I'm not tattooing you now or ever. Get your crap and get out of my shop and don't ever come in here again. At this point, I picked up her tattoo reference photos and shoved them back in her purse to hand to her. Karen switched to full-blown banshee. What the heck are you doing? Give me my purse. You're trying to rob me. Give me my money back or I'll call the police. She carried on a bit more, but I can't recall what she said. So I walked to the door, opened it, and threw her purse outside. Me, call whoever the heck you want, but you need to leave now. She practically leaped for the door, continuing to scream about her purse, the contents of which had spilled from me tossing it, and on her way out, she pushed me hard enough that I cut my shoulder on the corner of a vending machine in the lobby. I locked the door behind her, gathered my things, and left on foot out the back to get lunch at the bar a couple doors down. While I was at lunch, I was there for over an hour working on stuff on my laptop, I got a notification that someone had left a review. Guess who? It was the most insane and confusing review I ever read. My favorite parts were that I had secretly disclosed having hepatitis to her and that her nephew was going to do an apprenticeship with us, but wouldn't after how she was treated. The rest of it was crazy, saying my shop was dirty, I'm an addict, etc. So I flagged it with Google and figured that was the end of that. My shop had a little enclosed patio at the front entrance with seating and a smoking area for clients, as well as a bunch of potted plants and decorations. When I returned, I found all but one of my pots broken. Dirt and plants everywhere, a bench thrown halfway over the fence, the Christmas lights had been torn down, my gate had been kicked or pushed so hard it was sitting crooked on the hinges. My small window had been broken, one of the letters torn off of my tattoos sign, and my car was keyed. My car had a huge sticker for my shop, and my plate was tattoo related, so it was obvious who to target. Not a little bit keyed either. This jerk went crazy while keying my car. There was so much damage, I couldn't believe she had been able to do it in the hour or so that I'd been gone. I was super bummed. No one had seen it happening because the strip mall door/parking lot configuration was kind of weird. So I started crying. I was so bummed about my shop and the car and all of it. I'm really low key and I get stressed easy, and this was too much. I then called the police, canceled my next appointment, and went next door to visit while I waited for the cops. I found out the lady had been crazy rude to the piercer as well, and that he wound up kicking her out as well. She wanted him to replace the crap jewelry she had gotten it pierced with at another shop for a $150 barbell for free, and became irate when he refused. So irate that she pushed all the flyers from the flyer tables onto the ground as she left while yelling at him. So the cops showed up and took a report. It takes me a while to fill everything out, and he took a photo of the cut I got from being pushed, and we showed him the video of her trashing the place. It didn't catch all of it, but enough. The cop was telling me that the report was pretty much just for insurance because we don't know who she is or how to find her when I remembered the release form. Part of their release form process was to take a photocopy of client ID cards on the form. They have a laminated form, you just copy with the ID, so it's all on one page. So that's what I'd done when I was trying to shut her up. We dug the release form out of the trash, and the cops then had her full name, recent address, which she had written in because it was different than her ID card, phone number, etc. She lived not even a half a mile from the shop. So the cops drove to her house and arrested her. She got in trouble for all of it. By the time it was over, she had to serve several months in jail, and I assume a long time on probation, and I bet she had to attend classes. Just a guess. I don't know. I got a notification several months later letting me know she had gotten out of jail, and I remember thinking, darn, she was in there a while. The following day, her husband called me to find out what the damages were so he could cover the costs. By the time I added it up, it was close to $5,000. I was kind of a jerk, and I taxed the heck out of them and quoted him as though I had paid people top dollar to fix all of the stuff I actually fixed myself, like replace and set up the plants, the fence, etc. He brought an envelope of cash in the day after I told him the cost, or it may have been that evening. It was weird. He was a nice acting, seemingly normal guy. He apologized and said she has a temper. This means this Karen could have afforded the jewelry she was trying to get for free and the tattoo she was trying to get for cheap. I assume anyways. Seems like he just had the money laying around since he came up with it so fast. But don't worry, none of this stopped Karen. After she got out of jail, for about a year, my shop would get these random super weird reviews from random Gmail accounts that had no other reviews. I had no proof it was her, but we never got bad reviews till this happened, and they were all written in the same way. They all just sounded like the same person wrote them. Some of my favorite highlights from the reviews: that we reuse needles, that we did a misspelt tattoo, that we allow and had dogs in the shop, that we got shut down by the health department. There was plenty of other stuff, and it was all pretty far out. That's just all I can remember. This lady would write paragraphs of weird stuff every time, just rambling lunacy. I was in business for over 15 years. That was the only Karen I ever remember having to deal with. I'm sure there were a few other rude customers, but nothing like that. I wonder if she ever realized that she provided us the information that made it super easy to track her down right after. Edit. Does anyone else feel kind of bad for Karens? Like, it must be kind of hard to live a life where you're always tripping out. Speaking of tattoos, have you ever gotten a tattoo? And if not, would you? Please let us know. I've got a tattoo on my lower back that says "Re." Am I the jerk for ruining my ex's reputation? She, 25, cheated. I, 26, learned about it in September. But she was pregnant at the time already. I said, fine, I break up, but I want to see my daughter. Well, last week, her parents, her brother, and I were at the hospital to see her giving birth to a dark-skinned girl. I'm Russian, she is Japanese. I left the same moment I saw the baby. Her parents were mad at both of us. Her older brother threatened me if I break her heart now. So my ex posted a picture of her and her daughter, marked me, and said, "Look at this jewel, so beautiful, and yet her father left us for an old-timer." Yes, my current girlfriend is 38, and who cares? I love her, and she kind of got pregnant in November. I simply replied with, "Every colorblind person can see that this child isn't mine." She took the post down an hour later, but her comments exploded, and so did my DMs. Around 230 of her followers wrote me if it's true that I am not her father. Well, duh. I posted a DNA test that proved that the child is not mine and wrote below the post, "God bless my luck." I was referring to the fact that I don't have to raise a stranger's child. And the second slide was a picture of me and my girlfriend standing next to each other with my hand on her stomach. Well, she lost around 50% of her followers and dozens of friends. As of right now, I know that she's being harassed online and deleted her entire account. Facebook account was deleted, and she even deleted her WhatsApp account. This happened in a span of, 8 hours? I'm quite satisfied about the post that I made, and me and my current girlfriend are watching Brooklyn 99 while laughing at screenshots of her comment section that my friends sent me. So, am I the jerk for ruining my ex-girlfriend's reputation? Those who harassed me because of the post from my ex also harassed my girlfriend. I'm glad they apologized though and left us alone. Edit. Thanks for the awards, but don't waste them on my post. There must be 100 posts in your feed that deserve it more than mine. All I did was play the reverse card on my ex. Edit 2. For those thinking, why does this guy already have a new girlfriend and all that? I have extreme fear of being alone. I lost my father 6 years ago, and with him my older sister. My mom passed 2.5 years ago and left me and my little brother, who was 16 at the time, alone. No relatives here, and I had to take care of him. I had extreme fear of losing him and staying alone. The only crutch for this fear was my ex, and after we broke up, I became anxious again and went back into dating very fast. Thinking about it now, it was the best idea while not the best thing to do. Also, helpful awards make me feel like there are others out there that are in the same position but can't cope with it like I did. You guys and girls didn't deserve such things. No one deserves being cheated on, and I know that you feel like crap for a certain time and that your confidence is at the ground. For some, it takes hours. For some, it takes months to accept the fact that your partner cheated on you because you were too good for him or her. You are loved and wanted, just that this person knew that you were way above them and they couldn't cope with that. Am I the jerk for accepting my dad's apology gift on behalf of both me and my wife? This year, we had a Zoom Thanksgiving with my family. My brother, 49, and his wife, who's 26, and my dad, who's 71, and my stepmom, who's 40. My dad has always been protective of me and my brother and speaks out if he feels either of us are being treated badly by others. My wife, who's 46, had a hysterectomy 2 years ago because after giving birth to our fourth child, doctors said she had endometriosis. After her hysterectomy, her personality completely changed. She was no longer as happy-go-lucky as she used to be, would spend hours laying in bed, and would refuse to dress up for social events or buy new clothes, period, because she said she could break out into sweats at any moment and soak her entire outfit. I understand her problems and I never fault her for anything she says or does. However, my dad has expressed that he was uncomfortable about how snappy my wife has been to me and that she always looks like she's been dragged to social events we attend against her will, underdressed, hair disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. During our Thanksgiving dinner, my brother, who's 49, and his wife of 3 years, who is 26, were talking about a new construction project he was overseeing and I was consulting on. His wife was extremely excited and pumping him up about how he will employ so many people during what's going on and that he never fails to amaze in his results. My dad asked my wife what she thought, and when she gave a non-committal response, they got into an argument. My dad called my wife a wet blanket who didn't support anything I did, and my wife called him a jerk who left my mom alone and destitute. My dad said that I could do so much better and that my wife should be more like my brother's wife, who is always dressed to the nines and is very physically affectionate with him in public, who he said was always put together, happy, and supportive. To which my wife replied that he probably has never tolerated a woman during menopause, but he acts worse than any menopausal woman. I ended the Zoom call after he said, "She should at least try harder to keep you." I was very angry, but it's been a while and my dad has been texting me about how sorry he was and that he was drunk. I thought that my wife had cooled off as well. Yesterday, a package arrived, and inside was a sorry note from my dad. He had gifted me a new watch and a coffee machine he wanted to get for our family. I bought the gifts inside and ended up texting him and my stepmom in the family group chat. I simply said thanks for the gifts from our family. My wife was furious that I accepted gifts from my father and even angrier when I showed her the note. She said she does not accept the apology and that she doesn't want the gifts. I told her I didn't really know what the big deal was because families give each other gifts and he's still my father, and she herself said she was going to have to talk to him eventually. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for proving to my little brother there's nothing scary in the basement and now my parents are mad that they can't use that as a punishment? I, 19, male, moved back in with my parents a few weeks ago while I'm waiting to move to a new apartment next month. I have a 7-year-old brother, AJ, and we're really close. He's happy that I'm staying here again for a bit. My parents moved into a new house last year that comes with a basement. AJ is scared of it because he thinks there's a monster there. He won't even go near the door. Since I've been here, I noticed whenever my brother does something, my parents say they're gonna lock him in the basement. Not for real, if he doesn't behave and that it gets him to stop. To be honest, I didn't think that was fair because AJ was really terrified and would actually cry if they even mentioned doing that. But they kept doing it because he'd start to behave. He's not a bad kid, by the way, just a kid who acts like any other kid sometimes and acts up. Last week, I tried to get him to see that there's nothing scary so he can get over that fear. I told him if I'm wrong, I'll give him my PS5, so he was interested after that. I went down there by myself first and turned on the lights. When he saw I was okay, he slowly went down. Took maybe 10 minutes for him to go down the stairs. He was still really scared, but I said it's okay, nothing was gonna happen, and even if there was a monster, my parents wouldn't have bought the house, cause then they'd be the ones having to take care of it, clean up all the hairs, pay for the vet if it ever got sick, etc. That made sense to him, I guess. We just looked around, and then he was relaxed, so we watched some videos on my phone down there and ate. He pretty much wasn't scared anymore, and when my parents got home, he made them watch him go downstairs by himself. They didn't say anything in front of him, but they were upset when we were alone. Which, okay, yeah, I guess makes sense. They can't use that as punishment, but didn't expect them to be mad that AJ wasn't scared of something anymore. My dad said I didn't have a right to interfere with their parenting and I crossed some lines or whatever. I don't know if this is something they should really be this mad over, and now my mom is being super short with me. It feels like I did do something wrong now. Like, yeah, my parents sort of used to be the same with me as a kid, telling me they're gonna leave me with that guy over there if I don't stop crying at the store. So I feel like maybe I did ruin that for them. But also, it didn't feel right to let AJ keep being scared like that of something in the house. A little bit conflicted here on how I did things. Was I the jerk for, I guess, taking away the punishment they use and crossing a line in their parenting? Well, what do you think? Was it wrong of OP to tell their little brother the truth about the basement or not? Please let us know. I wish we had a basement so I could lock you down there, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for not punishing my stepson for what he said to my daughter? I, 45, male, and my ex split 8 years ago. I met my current wife during our divorce and married her pretty quickly after it was finalized. I now live with my wife, 41, female, and my stepson, 16, male, and while my ex offered 50-50 custody of our daughter, 15, I felt it better she stay with her mother so I could adjust to life with my new wife and stepson. So she came every other weekend before lockdown. She's been with her mom since March. Here's where the issue comes in. My stepson feels threatened by my daughter when she's here. I'm the only father figure he's ever had, and he doesn't like sharing my attention, so he's often quite rude and mean to her. We normally just assure her it's because he's insecure. My stepson came home yesterday cheerfully saying that my daughter said she'd never come here again. I called my daughter to ask why she'd say that. According to her, my stepson has been saying since school resumed that I picked him over her and that I hated her coming to visit and how everyone was so happy these months she didn't visit. No one wanted her there and she needed to just stay away from us. He denied it, of course, but my daughter's friend filmed it at some point. Gotta love the age of smartphones, and sent it to me. When confronted, he got watery-eyed and said he was just afraid of losing me. I told my daughter that I obviously didn't feel that way and he just felt threatened by her presence. She asked if I was going to actually do something about his behavior this time or if I was just going to brush it under the rug like I always did. I told her I didn't brush anything under the rug, but I wasn't going to punish him for being insecure about losing his father figure. She told me she was tired of his daddy issues being an excuse to treat her like crap, and since I wouldn't stand up for her, she wouldn't be visiting again. I tried to talk to my ex about it, but she said I picked him over her repeatedly and never stood up for her when he treated her poorly, so I don't get to play the victim now that she's fed up with it. I think they're both being overly sensitive here, and my daughter needs to get over it and visit again. But my brother said I let my stepson boost my ego and failed my daughter by not standing up for her. My nephew suggested I post here. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know.
More like the worst father that ever existed, if we can even call him a father.
Am I the jerk for requesting money back from a single mom? I, 22, female, lost my job and house due to what's going on. I live in a small town, so I haven't found anything stable for months. I drive for an RS to afford essentials. I'm completely drained and depressed. This year has been so awful for people here, and it's a lot, mentally, to see so much hardship. My mom, 50, and her husband, who's 62, live in the same town. I cannot stay there because her husband despises me for being non-religious. My dad has never been in the picture. They live in a very nice part of town, and I am not a good look for them. My mom does let me receive my mail there, but that was a big mistake. This year, my town did a free Xmas raffle where 10 people would win a $250 prepaid card. They announced the winners on Facebook, and I was actually one of them. I literally couldn't believe it. I knew I could make that money last a while and felt such relief. I called my mom to let her know I won. The card was being sent to her house and to call me when it gets there. She agreed, and that was that. A week goes by, and I realized that it would have been delivered by now, so I call her for 2 days with no answer. I decided to just go to her house to see if it arrived. She answered the door, and I asked her if the card was delivered. She goes on to explain it was delivered 4 days ago. However, when she was grabbing the mail, the neighbor, her friend, was checking her mail as well. While talking, her neighbor started on about how her ex-husband isn't sending as much child support right now and that her kids aren't going to have the Xmas they're used to. My mother then proceeded to open my mail and give her the $250 gift card. She told her that I had won it, and despite my situation, which the neighbor is fully aware of, I wouldn't mind giving it to a single mom for Christmas. This neighbor has money, a nice house, a well-paying job, and she accepted it. I saw red. With tears in my eyes, I yelled at my mom, then ran outside and went to the neighbor's house. I knocked on her door, still crying, and she answered. I begged her for the card back. She told me she had already spent it on Christmas presents and that I was completely rude and selfish for trying to take back something that was gifted to her. I said it wasn't my mom's to give away in the first place, that she knows my situation. How could she be so heartless? She laughs, then says,
This year has been tough on everyone. Why do you think you're so special and deserving?
She slammed the door in my face. I ran to my car and left. The neighbor told my mom, and she is furious with me. Non-stop messages from family saying I'm disgusting for asking a single mother to give the money back. I haven't responded to anyone, but I know how angry I was, and I am doubting my judgment. I understand why my mom is sympathetic. She was a single mother for a long time as well. Everyone wants me to go back and apologize. I want to find out if I was cruel before saying anything at all. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you agree with, OP or her mom? Please let us know.
She needs to call the cops on her mom. What that mom did was wrong on so many levels.
Am I the jerk for telling my wife that while I backed her decision, I resent that we live in an apartment and my siblings have nice houses? I've been married for 5 years, so this happened a while ago, but we're still dealing with the effects. My parents are pretty rich and like to help their kids, with strings attached. I'm the youngest of 3, and they paid for both of my siblings' weddings and bought them houses. And I don't mean the down payment, they bought them outright. When I got engaged, they offered to do the same, and we were ecstatic. Now, according to wedding tradition, the bride's mother gets first choice of what color to wear. I'm not sure how much people follow that anymore, but my wife and mother-in-law thought it was important. I do feel like since my mom paid for the wedding, maybe she should have gotten first pick, or they could have worn the same color, because who really cares? My mom and mother-in-law ended up wanting the same color. My wife stood by that her mom gets to pick first, and my mom threw a tantrum and said she wasn't coming. She did back down on that, but my dad said he would not be buying us a house because we were disrespectful, and he complained about not being able to get his money back for the wedding. My dad did give us the choice to have mother-in-law change her dress color and still get a house, but my wife stood firm and I supported her because I wanted to start the marriage as a united front. My parents acted like jerks at the wedding and sulked the entire time. Now, I'm not going to excuse it, but my mom has literally never been told before, or at least never had anyone hold firm on the no if she screamed and cried. My grandfather was the type of parent who would fire nannies for disciplining her, and he created a monster. My dad loves to enable said monster. I do think her behavior sucked, but to me, it wasn't worth losing a house over. My wife and I are talking about trying for our first kid, though she knows I would like to be in a house by the time they are born, and we don't know if that's going to happen. I told her that honestly, she made the wrong decision, and I resent that we have to live with it. My mom acted like a drama queen, but she did pay for the wedding, and I wish we let her wear the dress, because I hate living in an apartment while my siblings have gorgeous houses. My wife got mad and said that I should be apologetic to her because they are my parents, and that I should have kept that to myself. Well, who do you agree with, OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Tell that mom of yours that Mr. Reddit and I are having a second wedding soon. She can come and wear whatever color she wants, as long as she buys us a new house.
Karen threatens to call the HOA on us. Just a bit of info. I live in a smallish neighborhood. There are several trail systems nearby. Some of them are marked trails, others are glorified footpaths. I ride a mountain bike with friends on them because I'm too lazy to drive to an actual park, but they aren't too shabby. The usual cast of me, my friend, an entitled lady, and her son or husband. Friend and I are riding our bikes around our community, taking the occasional trail or going down stair sets. Nothing too interesting, but that sort of sums up me. We're getting ready to turn onto one of the larger trails when entitled guy walks out of his garage. We didn't really know the guy, but I knew his mom or wife was a jerk. I might post that story. As we're turning into the trail, he yells out, "That's not a bike trail!" This was one of the trails that was marked, but it wasn't marked as a designated bike trail. Friend points out that it doesn't say not to ride a bike on it, and Jerk cuts him off with, "Shut it, jerk!" That was just the first part. After that happened, we just started avoiding that area, but we were bound to go back there because the trail is pretty fun. Fast forward to today. Friend and I are back at the trail. We actually went down and nothing bad happened. While we were coming back up the trail, it ends near a railroad and there isn't any other way to get back. We see entitled mom sitting on the patio behind Jerk's house. As we're walking by, she starts yelling,
Hey boys, you aren't supposed to ride bikes back here?
Friend calls back, "Where does it say that?" There's a pause, and she says,
"A trail sign says there aren't any bikes."
It doesn't. I try to explain to her that the sign says, "Use trails at your own risk," but nothing about mountain bikes, and she cuts me off.
Don't disrespect your elders.
She then tries to tell us that the trail is private property, even though the sign clearly states that it's for the public. I sort of laugh and say to my friend, "Let's just go. This Karen isn't worth the argument." I said this almost under my breath, but apparently she has wizard ears.
What did you call me? Karen? I know the president of the HOA, and I will report you.
I tell friend to leave, and we hightail it out of there. I will update if anything else happens. Would you ever call someone a Karen to their face? Or is that something you would never do? Please let us know. Give my kid your PS5, or you've ruined his Christmas. So the other day, I, 30 male, got lucky and managed to get hold of a PS5, which are like gold dust in the UK at the moment. Work has been ridiculous this year, and my PS4 broke a few months back. To say I'm hyped for it and some holiday downtime is an understatement. The console finally arrived the other day and was left with my neighbor. I knocked on the door, thanked them for taking the parcel, and exchanged some pleasantries. When she casually asked if it was anything nice, I told her it was a PS5. We had the usual small talk, and I went back inside, thinking nothing of it. Later, we had a knock on the door from her husband, who's about 38. He said his wife had mentioned I'd gotten a PS5 and they wanted one for their 7-year-old son. It was all his son wanted this year, and it's been a tough year for his son as he's not been able to see his friends much. So, would I consider selling it to them for what I bought it for? I said I understood, but I really didn't want to sell it as I was looking forward to playing it. That's when things got a bit weird. He huffed a little and said Christmas should be about kids, and I should really consider how hard it's been for them, and offered me an extra 50 pounds. I said I wouldn't be selling it for any price. I wasn't looking to make money on it, I just really wanted to play it. He left, but said he hoped I'd reconsider as, "You and I are a bit old for video games anyway," and walked off. End of story, I thought. The next day, he comes over again, this time with his son. He said his son really wanted to see the PS5 he had heard about. The boy then said to me that's what he really wanted for Christmas and hoped Santa would get him one. I replied that hopefully he would, but it's really busy for him this year, so he might have to wait a little longer for it. But if not, I'm sure he'd get something nice instead. Another day passes, and my fiance said they had posted something weird on social media about, there's a neighborhood group, how they had thought 2020 would have made people less selfish and more giving. But they were disappointed in their neighborhood, which had forgotten community spirit, and how people should be more thoughtful towards the kids in the streets, given how much they've all suffered this year. Off the back of it, my fiance asked if I should sell them the console, just to keep the peace. Later in the day, they came around again to tell me that I had promised their son he'd be getting a PS5 for Christmas, and now it would be ruined if he didn't get one. She said that I am an adult and should be thinking of kids at Christmas, not acting like one playing video games, and that I was being unbelievably selfish and cruel. He added that he didn't know why we could enjoy Christmas knowing we were horrible people that had ruined a 7-year-old's Christmas. Now, I've also heard from some people on the street that they've been talking crap about us to people, though most neighbors are just staying out of it, but we're definitely getting some daggers from the mums who lunch crew. We live in a super nice neighborhood, but it's firmly middle class, lots of private school kids called Hattie and Sebastian, etc. We're definitely the youngest on the street and the weird childless couple, which I don't think PS5 Gate is helping with. My fiance just wants to sell it to them to end it, but I'm still trying to hold firm. Honestly, I feel like I'm losing my mind at this point. Well, what do you think? Should OP sell them the PS5 or not? Please let us know.
Never give in to a Karen. Once you do, we own you. Just ask Reddit boy over here. Yes.
Entitled Grandma Claims Inheritance, which could have ruined me and my siblings' future. A little context. My family is a pretty well-off family. My mom and dad had garner money and land for their business and are able to send me and my 2 siblings to a local international school. The majority of the land they bought was in my mother's name because of a stupid reason totally unrelated to the story. Remember this point. My mom, however, passed away before I could even finish high school 5 years ago, but to this day, I'm still affected by that event. Before she passed, Dad felt that something around the conflict regarding inheritance would occur, so he tries to clear everything, even visiting the land registry every day for a whole month and transferring the inheritance into the name of him, me, and my siblings. Now, as you all will probably know, when there's a lot of inheritance involved, your fam's about to get busy. Enter entitled Grandma, my deceased mom's mother. There weren't really any issues to begin with. My dad promised to let entitled Grandma stay in the home he and my mom built. The home was registered in my dad's name. He even provided her a monthly payment of approximately $650 US. Might not sound like much, but in my country, it was enough to live comfortably, considering she isn't responsible for rent and other bills. Everything, apart from some minor stupid inheritance claims here and there, seems fine for about 3 years. The 4th year is when it goes down. Around that time, I was doing a master's degree in the UK, which I recently just graduated at the time of this post. My sister's doing an undergraduate in Australia, and my younger brother is about to graduate high school. As it's always been, both my parents' goal to send us abroad for education, you can pretty much guess the financial burden my dad has now. Entitled Grandma, however, decides that it's none of her concern and decides to sue. Apparently, according to the lawsuit document, she is entitled to all the land that is registered in my mom's name prior to her signing it off. The house my dad is letting her live in, along with other stuff worth over millions in US dollars. You might be thinking, what the heck? But didn't your mom sign the inheritance document? This is where it gets more messed up. Despite my dad sending my mom to be treated in one of the best and most expensive private hospitals in the country and splurging nearly $1 million in medical treatment, entitled grandma still claims,
"This person has attempted to indirectly hurt my daughter and intends to hog all the inheritance to himself."
These included blurting out excuses like
tricking her during a not fully conscious state, feeding her unsanitary green water during her homestay period,
or even
intentionally instructing the doctors to not fully treat my daughter.
What makes my blood boil even more was that entitled grandma did not care about the fact that me and my siblings, her grandkids, are still financially dependent on my dad for our education and livelihood, and wanted my dad put in jail on the charges of inheritance scam. The details of the lawsuit and stuff is complicated, but just to give you a summary, my dad has upper hand, albeit few loopholes exist, as all the documents had been signed, and the patient documents did not support any of her stupid claims. He, however, decided to settle the lawsuit in court by saying that he will pay entitled grandma $500,000 in cash, allowing her to stay in that home for the rest of her life and allowing her to collect rent on one of my dad's small condos for the rest of her life also. This is on the condition that entitled grandma cut all family ties with us and never bring the issue of inheritance to court ever again. When I asked my dad why he decided to settle by giving entitled grandma money, even though entitled grandma filed a lawsuit against him without regards to his financial burden and him still having the upper hand, he simply just uttered, "Your mom loved entitled grandma very much, and I promised her I would never hurt entitled grandma." The aftermath. The lawsuit was settled about a year ago. If you're wondering what happens after, my mom's family is completely a mess. Last I heard, entitled grandma has already burnt through all the money and is now receiving threats from her group of relatives as they want in with the share. Now she's begging to see the grandkids she loves so much. Talk about karma. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have given in to entitled grandma's demands or not? Please let us know.
I'd have given her a quick trip down a long set of stairs, if you know what I mean.
Christian holier-than-thou entitled mom is back. This time, I'm not so nice. To give some background, every Christmas, me and my wife do our own version of Secret Santa, where we find some family in our church or surrounding community that is very financially strained and might not be able to afford Christmas gifts that year, and buy gifts for everyone in that family. This has been the 4th year we've done this, and quite frankly, it's a very rewarding experience to deliver holiday joy to a family in need. We mainly find our families secretly by asking church friends if they might know of a family that is going through a very tough time financially. Most of the time, the family either knows a Secret Santa is helping that year or is completely blindsided Christmas morning with special delivery. Although due to lockdown, we plan to load the presents on the doorstep and ring the doorbell as we get the family's reaction from the sidewalk. Now, on to the story. We got our information for 2 separate families that needed help this year, and me and my wife were planning out which gifts to buy for both families, gift budget, etc. During our brainstorming session, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. When I picked up, it was a kid's voice informing me that, "My mother would like to talk to you." I could hear the kid hand the phone to someone else, and then I was greeted by a familiar voice, the entitled mom of the story, aka friend's aunt, entitled mom.
"Hello, OP?"
Me, eyes growing wide and silently cursing under my breath. Entitled mom? To what do I owe the pleasure? Entitled mom.
"Well, I'm glad you asked. My nephew mentioned during a family Zoom call earlier that you were buying Christmas gifts for random strangers this year and how commendable your charitable giving was."
Me, mildly flattered at my friend's words, but at the same time wishing that he just kept his mouth shut. Well, he is correct. I am doing a Secret Santa this year.
"Perfect. That's why I wanted to call you."
Me, you know of a family in need?
"Yeah, me."
One thing I should point out about entitled mom that I learned from my friend is that she used to be married to a rich guy whose family owned some oil fields. From what I understand, when they divorced, she didn't get ownership of the family's assets. Despite this, she still stuck the guy with alimony and gained 70% custody of their child. Back to the story. Me, you need help? Entitled mom.
"Yes. You see, I really wanted to get my son a PS5 for Christmas, and since my gift budget is already strained this year, I'd figured you could step up and help me bring him some holiday joy."
Me, already suspecting that something is very suspicious here. What do you mean that your gift budget is already strained?
"Well, my car broke down, and I decided to buy a new one."
Me, well, that's unfortunate. Hopefully your new car is reliable.
"Sure is. I I decided to treat myself to an early Christmas gift and bought one of those brand new Cadillac Escalades.
I just so happened to have my Chromebook in front of me during the call, so I used it to look up the MSRP for a new Escalade, which had a starting price of above $75,000. At that moment, a very cold anger had started to arise in me, much akin to my previous encounter with the entitled mom. Here she is, again trying to take advantage of me just to get a PS5 for her kid while she blows money on a Cadillac. She could have bought a much cheaper car and could still have money left over for multiple PS5s and could have still had money left over to buy gifts for multiple families. My wife could see that I was not in a good mood and looked concerned as I walked into my office. I may have been nice to the entitled mom before, but this time I was going to give her a piece of my mind. Entitled mom:
So, going back to the PS5, if you could get one with a few games.
Me, cutting her off: No.
Excuse me?
Me: I will not be buying your son a PS5 for Christmas.
But he really wants one. Are you going to deny a kid's wish?
Me: Let me tell you something about my charitable giving. It goes to families that barely have enough to get by at the end of the day and are staring down the barrel of choosing between rent or Christmas gifts, not entitled people like you who have poor spending habits. Entitled mom scoffs:
Why, I never. How dare you?
Me: Look who's talking. You obviously have more than enough money to purchase an SUV that costs more than a blue-collar income. Yet here you are trying to bum a free PS5 off of me, all because your budget is strained? If your budget is so strained, then why don't you sell that overpriced car and buy one yourself?
You should watch your tongue. You know, the Bible says that the younger generations should be subject to your elders.
This pushed me over the edge. At this point, I was fuming and had decided it was time to burn a bridge with entitled mom. Me: You know what? Maybe if you spent more time actually reading your Bible instead of thumping it all the time, you'd actually be more thoughtful of people other than yourself. Heck, maybe you'd be the one doing the Secret Santa. Don't you ever call my phone again. Clearly, you are someone who is not worth wasting my time on. I'd wish you a Merry Christmas, but maybe even that's too good for you. Hangs up. I blocked the number and proceeded to text my friend to make sure that his aunt never contacts me again. Oddly enough, I didn't need to take time to calm down. Telling entitled mom off was actually quite cathartic. Have you ever done a Secret Santa? If so, what kind of gifts did you buy? Please let us know. Nope, still didn't scan. Texas has this strange idea that providing you a driver's license the day you go to the DMV is risky. As such, they give you a piece of paper printed out in black and white and mail you the actual license at a later date. This is a bit strange as it creates a period where people carry a valid legal document that looks like a 5th grader pasted a headshot into MS Paint. This created an awkward dynamic when I worked at a gas station. What do people go to gas stations for? After that, the most common things are lottery, beer, and smokes. All of these are age-restricted and have rather intense laws surrounding unlawful sales. To help avoid the nasty fines / etc. associated with these, my gas station had a pair of rules. 1. For anyone you're not 100% sure is over 30, ask if they're over 30 and card them if you're not convinced they're older than 30 after said answer. Yes, the question was stupid, but whatever. 2. Scan all IDs to ensure they're legitimate documents and not fakes. At their face, these sound reasonable. Though the second caused an odd situation where fancier states had 3D barcodes instead of magnetic strips, meaning I couldn't sell. And this story is obviously heading towards the paper the DMV gives people. Here's one such story. It's a small rush, 3 to 4 people in line, and a younger guy comes in to buy beer. I'm honestly not sure if he's 21, so he's clearly not 30. I ask the nonsensical question, because really I can be fired if I just card him without asking the question. He tells me he's not older than 30. I ask for his ID, and he fumbles to pull out the dreaded paper ID. Now, the combination of Texas and my employer have put everyone into a frustrating situation. In addition to Texas using these silly paper IDs, state law also requires you to get an acceptable ID before making any sale once you've asked for ID. In other words, you can't ask for ID and then determine you believe they're old enough. If you doubt it enough to ask, you're liable for any sale. I see the ID and immediately feel bad. I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to take that ID. I recommend trying the gas station down the street that has different ownership and potentially more consumer-friendly rules. He provided the common response to ask why I can't take it. I explained to him the corporate policy requires I scan the magnetic strip of all IDs to verify their authenticity, and they've explicitly decided against waiving that rule for paper IDs. He instantly gets furious and tells me to scan the ID. This one caught me off a bit, and I asked him, "Are you serious?" To which he told me, "Yes, now scan my ID." Befuddled, I take the folded up piece of paper and slide it through the magnetic strip reader. "Sorry, sir, it didn't scan." This started a chain of events where each thing seemed more unrealistic. His response was, "You didn't even try." I asked if he'd like me to try harder to scan the ID, and he said he did. I looked at him confused and tried several different ways to slide this folded up piece of paper, unfolded piece of paper, slide slowly, quickly slide, used multiple scanners, etc. to get it to scan. Nope, still didn't scan. I hand it back to him and he's over the top at this point. It's also worth noting the line behind him is now about 10 people strong, including a few regulars watching in amazement as I'm remaining calm. He starts yelling at me and demands a contact for my manager. I pull out my paperwork and provide him a number for our corporate office. "No, stupid. I want your manager, not your corporate office." Okay. I gave him my manager's manager. I gladly handed him the store's number, which would come to me, and shared the hours my manager typically worked so he'd be free to try to call. After he left, I made a point to apologize to each person in line for the extra wait, while each also expressed surprise I hadn't snapped at the dude. Needless to say, he never made that call to my manager, though I don't know if he ever found his beer. Am I the jerk for selling my family home because my pregnant sister-in-law ate my dinner? I want to point out me and my brother have two different fathers. I, 19, female, lost my father last year to cancer. He left me 90% of his stuff, including his family home that was left to him by his dad. It's been in their family for over 100 years. My brother, 34, and my dad didn't have a relationship, but he did leave him $10,000. My mom was upset at the will reading, but since she got $10,000, she couldn't do anything about it. For the past year, me and her live okay together. She went on acting like it was her house, like before, which I had no problem with, till my brother and his girlfriend, who's 30, moved in without even asking me. They're messy, entitled, and rude. I told them in July I want them out by September because they don't pay for anything nor wash any dishes. In August, they announced they were pregnant, and my sister-in-law smugly said, "Guess we won't be moving out now." It didn't go down well, but when I told them I wanted them out, my mom and brother basically laughed in my face. Well, the past few months have been heck. They've become worse than before, and my mom enables it, then demands me to treat my sister-in-law like a princess because she's pregnant. I once had to wait outside McDonald's till they opened to get her a McMuffin. Well, here's where I may be the jerk. Because my sister-in-law is pregnant, she eats everything she sees, like the cupcakes my friend made for my birthday. She ate all 6. I didn't even get to try them. I can't even make my lunch the night before because when I go to get it, it will be gone. She'll have a smug look on her face while rubbing her belly, then laugh and say, "I couldn't help myself. Blame the baby." If I put stuff in the room, my mom will open the door with a spare key. Sister-in-law can go through my mini fridge. Well, a week ago, I was running late to college. I didn't have time for my breakfast or to make lunch, and I had to go to work straight after, so all I had that day was a bar of chocolate. When I got home, I was starving. I made myself dinner, and while it was cooling down, I went to use the restroom. I must have been in there 10 minutes at most, and by the time I came out, she had 70% of my dinner ate, and I literally lost my crap. Of course, she started crying. My mom and brother started screaming at me for making her cry, making excuses like she couldn't help it, and it was my fault for leaving food around her. Well, I had enough. I told them get out, just like before. I got mocked. But here's the thing. Back in October, my uncle offered me a life-changing amount of money for the house. I called him up crying a few days ago, explaining the situation, and he said he'd buy the house, but he will evict my mom and brother. They, of course, don't take it too well, and I have had to stay with a friend. I've been receiving texts, and I'm being tagged in multiple posts on social media. I'm starting to think I'm the bad person now. So, am I the jerk for making my mom and brother homeless? So, I'm on a break. I'll address some things. Some of your roasts are hilarious. I honestly deserve it for how bad my grammar is, but I was walking to work and declining calls from my mom while making this post. I almost said forget it and didn't post. If I sell the house to my uncle, I will lose $100,000, but he's always been good to me. It's one of those situations where I'd sleep better knowing it's gone to someone in my dad's family. My mom told me because of my age, I wouldn't be taken seriously if I tried to evict them. If I evict them and continue to live in the house along with the high financial costs, I don't think they'd ever let me live in peace. My mom has health issues, and my sister-in-law will have to move in with her parents. They won't allow my brother, so I'd be splitting up a young family in my mom's words. Guys, I'm actually crying. I've never been told before, I'm proud of you, and the fact I've seen a thread of comments telling me that means the absolute world to me. Edit 2. I plan to meet a lawyer and will update you all as soon as I've news. Also, since people are curious, the house is worth $2.5 million. It's in the heart of London. Well, what do you think? Should OP sell the house or not? Please let us know.
Yes, most definitely. They will respect your authority.
Teach you something you don't know? Sure. Going through school, I got involved with a volunteer first aid brigade through a friend who I will call Jim. Yes, the same name from my previous story. Turns out the bully was a volunteer first aider. As a result, I became one of the youngest medical first responders in the country due to how much work I put in. I was trained to use the AED, shown how IVs worked, not use them, hook up people to oxygen tanks, and other stuff that you wouldn't be taught in a regular first aid course. I was age 14 and helped quite a few people as a result of my training and volunteer work. Can't say that I officially saved any lives though, but I digress. Shortly after getting out of high school, I got a job as a first aid instructor for a short while, though admittedly my age, I believe 17 to 18 at the time, didn't really inspire much confidence in my trainees, as most were much older than me. In many cases, I was assigned to renew people's certificates rather than actually teaching. In other cases, my class didn't really take me seriously due to my age. I didn't really mind this, as I was passionate about it at the time, having the knowledge that what I am teaching could possibly save people's lives. In this particular class, my clients were a class of high school students who needed their basic first aid for their classes. I don't recall what for exactly. This is a 5 to 6 hour course that ends with multiple choice test. Easy money. This was at the high school I went to, and surprise of surprises, this was a teacher I didn't particularly enjoy having. Not as bad as Mrs. Grump from my last story. We still got along for the most part, but her way of teaching was awkward. It's a little difficult to describe without being in her class personally. She always acted as though the students knew all the answers but were too shy to speak. Even if a student said they didn't know, she would say things like, "It's okay to answer, nobody is judging," and stuff like that. As I was not much older than the students, they weren't listening to me. There was one group of students that kept shouting, "Tell us something we don't know." I know, the basic first aid course, at least at this time, was repeating the same thing over and over again until you're brainwashed to repeat it. But show some respect. Teacher, of course, no help. During the break, the teacher took me aside and told me to teach the students something they didn't know. A lot of the basic first aid is common knowledge and common sense.
You're holding back. You know a lot more than what you are teaching. Show the students you know more than them.
Okay, sure. I talked to the principal of the school, who I was on good terms with, about what the teacher said and the students, and with his and the master instructor's permission, I added in a little-known module in the handbook to the lesson. When the students came back in, I start to talk. Some of you expressed that you want me to teach you something you don't know. Normally at this point, I would show you a video about asthma, but as I'm sure everyone knows about it, I've gotten special permission to change the lesson. Everyone, please turn to Module 28 in the textbook. The students complied, and a few gasps and chuckles echoed through the room. The teacher doubled over laughing, losing her own composure as well. So admittedly, I will be teaching this directly from the instructor's handbook, as I have never taught this module personally. We are going to be starting with a video. The class then proceeded to watch a 7-minute video on how to perform emergency childbirth. The video, fortunately, wasn't graphic. Afterwards, I called the students that had been going, "Teach us something we don't know," to come to the front and demonstrate the proper technique, using one of the CPR dummies as the mother and a head as the baby. Finally, we discussed how to take care of the placenta and how to administer ongoing care. After the module, the students were extremely attentive to say the least. Now that I've taught you something you don't know, how about we get through the rest of the lesson without any more interruptions? The class complied, and no one interrupted me for the rest of the session. Despite the malicious compliance, I didn't get in any trouble for it, and continued to teach the classes for this school's first aid until I let my instructor's certification expire. The next time I went in, the teacher warned the students that I would teach them something they didn't want to know if they interrupted me. And that, dear reader, is the time I taught a class of high schoolers how to perform emergency childbirth. I doubt I would ever get away with doing something like this now, but I will always remember this moment. Edit for clarity. A few of the comments are wondering how this is malicious compliance. I think the main understanding is that I was complying towards the teacher. I was actually complying to the annoying students who kept saying, "Tell us something we don't know." The spirit of the request was, "We are going to be jerks during this long-winded explanation about airway, breathing, and circulation."
The letter of the request was, "We know this already. Teach us something new." As for why I taught emergency childbirth, the reason is a little underwhelming. While burns and NPA tubes would have been a fantastic choice, I needed a module that would replace asthma in length of time, which left either poisons or emergency childbirth. Am I the jerk for yelling at my fiance after she hid my glasses? Me, male 31, and my fiance, female 26, have been together for 2.5 years, engaged for 4 months. We currently live together in an apartment an hour away from the hospital where my dad is staying. He has lung cancer. His condition hasn't been improving, and I've been visiting him and my family whenever I can to see if they need anything from me. My fiance's cousin's wedding was yesterday. I don't like attending weddings and large occasions, especially now that my dad is struggling, so I'm not really in the mood. But I decided to go anyway since my fiance insisted. But I got a call from my mom wanting my help at the hospital. My fiance heard me while I was talking on the phone and threw a fit when I told her that I can't go with her to the wedding because my mom needed me. She argued with me, but I told her to have some empathy and realize how much pressure she was putting me under. I noticed my glasses were missing, and without them, it was impossible for me to drive. I looked everywhere and I couldn't find them, although I was certain I left them on the coffee table. I spent nearly an hour looking and I was getting so frustrated. I didn't have a choice but to call my mom back and explain the issue I was dealing with and apologized for not coming. Thankfully, she said she'd call my sister and the call ended. Exactly 10 minutes after the call ended, my fiance walked out of the bedroom wearing her dress and holding my glasses in her hands, telling me to get ready to go to her cousin's wedding. I was stunned. I knew she had hid them because when I asked where she found them, she said they were on the nightstand, but I looked there and I couldn't find them. I literally yelled at her for pulling this nonsense so that I won't go to the hospital and go with her to the wedding instead. I told her I won't go after this, and she yelled back and said that my family are treating me like a doormat by constantly asking me to come and taking advantage of me. She said that I should let someone else deal with their never-ending problems and focus on us. She tried to convince me, but I still refused because I was upset. I took my glasses and I left immediately. I didn't find her at home, and I started getting texts from her mom wanting to know what was wrong, but I haven't replied to her, thinking she'll instantly take her side. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his fiance? Please let us know.
You sure you want to marry her, bruh?
Karen won't get out of the handicapped parking space and gets angry when she gets blocked in. Here I was, thinking that I'd run out of entitled people stories that don't involve my mother, but I'm back with yet another one. This happened a few days ago. I'm recovering from abdominal surgery 12 days prior to when this happened. I was finally feeling up for shopping, and there were things I needed from the hardware store. I'm a 30-year-old disabled female in a wheelchair, incomplete quadriplegic, and I don't have a car, so I got a taxi there, one with a ramp on the back so I don't have to get out of my wheelchair. Mr. Taxi Man, who we'll call Bruce, dropped me off and I went in to do my thing, nothing out of the ordinary. When I finished my shopping, I called to get the taxi back. It would be a 15-minute wait, but it was such a nice day that I didn't mind waiting outside. As I was waiting, I noticed that someone was parked in the disabled parking space, but there were no disabled tags on the windscreen. Annoying, but I honestly didn't care at that point. I just wanted to get home. About 10 minutes later, I saw a middle-aged woman walk out of the store and went straight to that car. She opened the boot, put her shopping in, and went around to the driver's side. But instead of getting in though, she got out a cigarette and started looking at her phone. A few minutes after that, I saw my taxi arrive. Bruce, being the polite and patient man he is, waited for the woman to drive out of the car space. Karen knew he was waiting for her, and she was darn sure she was parking illegally in the disabled parking space. But do you think she cared? She finished her cigarette and got into her car. We waited and waited, then waited some more, until Bruce got rightly fed up and parked the taxi directly behind Karen's car, blocking her in. This is when things got interesting. Karen began to honk her horn repetitively for a few seconds before she got out of her car. Karen:
What the heck do you think you're doing? You blocked me in.
Bruce, in a mocking, apologetic tone: I'm very sorry, ma'am, but I needed the car space, and you seem to want to stay there. Just thought I'd do you a favor. Now, if you don't mind, I have a job to do. Bruce gestured in my direction as I gave Karen a big smile. I hate confrontation, so I appreciated Bruce doing this for me. Bruce got into the car and fastened me and the wheelchair into place, all the while with Karen yelling and threatening to call the police. If it were any other day, I would have been happy to call the police so Karen would get a fine, but I just wanted to go home. It only took a few minutes before I was secured in the car and we left, but I made sure to give Karen a smile and a one-finger salute through the window as we were leaving, which made the encounter all the more sweeter.
My parents gave away my childhood dog. I'll start out from the beginning. When I was very young, I don't exactly remember when, we got a dog. That dog grew up with me. I'd cry with him, I'd hug him, I'd spend time with him, play fetch, everything. He knew when I wanted support, he knew when to leave me alone, and he was a very good boy. He had a history of ear infections. He had floppy ears that we took good care of. Even being young, I knew this and took care of his ears and made sure he was okay. About 2 years before we moved out of my childhood house, which had ample yard space for him, my parents got another dog for my father. This became my father's dog. Still to this day, does not really like anyone but him. My dog was a large dog as well that needed yard space and such for reference. Fast forward to when I'm 13 or so. My dog, Alex, changed for privacy, is about 7 or 8 years old. My parents decided to downsize a bit and move since my brother had left. We go through places, and I am adamant we find a place that can support my dog, Alex. They decide upon a place that's rent agreement says 1 dog and hardly has space for Alex. I beg and plead with them to find a place that can support him, but they say no. They say the house that we were at was too expensive and they didn't think I'd take Alex on walks, despite me promising to. Their compromise was giving him to my aunt, who had a farm. They promised me he'd love it. I yelled and screamed for days until finally saying yes because they said we'd visit. We move, he gets rehomed there, and they quickly state they will be giving him to another owner. I only got to visit him once. Fast forward a few years, Alex is almost near death, and my older brother finds him and adopts him. I see him once, and Alex passes away. To this day, I've still not forgiven my parents for it. I wouldn't say that I'm angry, but I'm definitely still hurt and upset that he spent so many years with us and passed with a family that he was only with for a few years. I also wonder how his ear infections were treated, because when my brother got him, it appeared no one had treated them and he was almost deaf. It hurt me to wonder how upset Alex was and how much Alex missed us and me. So the question is, am I the jerk for not forgiving my parents? I don't really bring it up that often unless it's an argument where it degrades into talking about past things we've done, but I feel like maybe it is time to let go and forgive them. It's been over 10 years or so since this happened. Edit with more info. 2:05 a.m., December 13th. Everything written above was written with the information I knew at the time of writing it. I spoke to my parents about it before I went to bed last night. They said there were some financial issues and they didn't have a lot of time to move. They said they put Alex with my aunt temporarily to find a good home for Alex and quickly did with some good friends from work. The reason they stated is it wasn't fair for Alex to have a tiny yard and not much space. My dad's dog is a small dog and could make do with a small yard. From what I understand, he was placed with a home that loved him dearly. He lived to a good age and my brother got him back before he passed, but my parents aren't sure how. Have you ever had a dog of your own? If so, what was their name? Please let us know.
I'd love a new puppy for Christmas, Mr. Reddit.
Security guard harasses me for waiting for my ride. So I work at an enterprise with a casino, hotel, and restaurants. I'm a custodian there and I've been for about a year, and every day afterwards, I wait for any of my family members or if no one's available to pick me up, an Uber to pick me up. I wait outside the main entrance in a specific spot for rideshare pickups. I had my uniform shirt off, but my uniform pants were still on, for obvious reasons. But I don't know if this security guard is new or whatever. But I was on my phone listening to my music and he suddenly came up to me, waving to me. I turned my AirPods off and talked to him. Guard.
Hey.
Me. Hey, can I help you?
Yeah. Can you take your AirPods out?
Me. No thanks, I can hear you just fine. I have my music off. Guard.
Okay, whatever. You mind telling me what you're doing out here?
Me. I'm waiting for my ride. Why? Guard.
Oh, okay, I got you. Just wondering. Any reason you waiting here instead of by the employee entrance?
Me. Yeah. Uber usually has trouble finding it because GPS doesn't directly lead to the entrance, so waiting here is just easier because this spot is made for waiting for rideshare pickups. So, guard.
Okay then. Well, do you have your work badge?
Me. Yes, it's in my pocket.
Can you put it on?
Me. I don't think I have to.
Yes, you do. It's policy to have it on.
Me. No, it's policy to have it on when you're in the building. I'm not in the building, and I'm not even near the entrance. There's no reason for me to have my badge on. Guard.
Okay, fine. I guess if you want to play that game, can I get your name?
Me. I don't think I have to tell you. Guard.
I'm not asking you. I'm telling you to give me your name.
What the heck? I'm not giving you anything. You have no right to demand my information. I've done nothing wrong.
You're loitering outside the building, so I need your name to make a report.
Me. What the heck? Loitering? I'm waiting for my ride in the rideshare pickup, so obviously I have a purpose. I've been doing this for a whole year and I've had no problems. Plenty of security officers saw me waiting here in uniform and didn't come to harass me.
I'm not harassing you. I'm telling you, you can't be sitting out here with no business.
Me. You're not a cop. What makes you think you can do that?
I may not be, but I have a right to protect the people here and the building, and you're waiting in the rideshare pickup that's for guests, not employees.
Me. Man, please. I don't feel like dealing with this. I just want to go home.
Guard. You're not going anywhere until you give me your information.
Me. You know what? Do you have a supervisor I can speak with?
Guard. Yes, I do.
Me. Can you please get him out here? He called out his supervisor and I waited for him to come out. After about 10 minutes, he came out and talked to me. Supervisor.
Hey, so what can I help you with?
Me. Hi. So your guard here is harassing me for waiting for my ride in the rideshare pickup that's supposedly not for employees, which I find very hard to believe as I've been working here for a year and always waited here after work. Plenty of guards and cops saw me waiting here and didn't give me any problems for it. Then he started demanding to have my badge on, even though it's policy to have it on when you're in the building, and I have a right to have it off outside. Then he started demanding for my information to make a report, I guess, and now he's detaining me because I won't give him my personal information. Supervisor.
Okay, I understand.
Well, you are right. This rideshare pickup is for anyone, and you're allowed to have your badge on or off outside the building here, but you do need to have it on whenever you're inside the building. Me. Yeah, I understand, sir. But listen, I've been harassed for the past 15 minutes. I just want to order my Uber and go home. If you can please just educate him about everything here and get him to leave me alone, that'd be great. Supervisor.
Okay, yeah, I'll keep that in mind, and you're free to go or stay. Sorry for any inconvenience. Have a nice day.
Me. Okay, thank you. Before you go, is there any way I can make a complaint?
Supervisor. Yeah, there's a number you can contact. I can give it to you if you want, but you can also stop by our main office to make a complaint there. Would you like the number?
Me. Yes, please. He gave me the number, and they finally left me alone. I'm definitely going to stop at the office and make a complaint about him for harassment. I'll make an update how that goes whenever I decide to do that. Have you ever been harassed by someone like a security guard? If so, what were they saying to you? Please let us know.
I've been harassed by people in your comments. Can someone just say one nice thing about me?
Am I the jerk for telling my ex-wife she didn't have to make a scene? So my daughter said for her 15th birthday that she wanted to go shopping with both my ex-wife, who's 51 female, and I, 53 male, and pick out a camel coat because she's wanted one for a long time. My current wife, 31 female, and our son, 2 male, happened to be there because my wife wanted to buy stuff in the department store we were going to, but she drove herself and our son there in a different car. A very young saleswoman that seemed new comes out and starts helping my daughter out. My ex-wife is standing pretty far away, and my current wife was nearby looking at some winter coats with our son. My daughter finds a coat that she really likes and asks what I think. I tell her that I like whatever she likes, and at this point, she's looking at herself in the mirror. The sales lady then gestures towards my ex-wife and says, "Why don't you go show Grandma and see what she thinks?" My ex-wife is within earshot and very visibly stiffens at the remark. My daughter kind of just looks shocked, and her stepmother interjects and says, "Oh no, I'm not her mom. She's the mom." The sales girl was very clearly embarrassed and flustered, and the first thing she does is sputter out to my current wife, "I thought you were a bit too young to have a teenager." And then she turns to my ex-wife and very apologetically says, "I'm sorry, ma'am," and makes her excuses and pretty much backs away from all of us. My ex-wife's face turns red, and when my daughter tried to speak to her, my ex-wife said, "Excuse me for a minute, I'll be right back," and then she rushed out of the store. My daughter ended up not buying anything, and when my ex-wife came back, my daughter said she'd rather go home and have her birthday cake. On the ride back to my ex's place, my ex-wife muttered that she hoped that sales girl was new because she clearly didn't know how to deal with customers. I didn't think that was fair for my ex-wife to say rude things about someone who just made an innocent mistake and to still be holding a grudge over a stupid comment. When our daughter was out of earshot, I told her that she didn't have to ruin the day by leaving the store and that I've been mistaken for somebody's brother that I looked 0% like. She started crying and saying that's not the same thing as being called someone's grandmother, and how dare I fault her for her reaction. Then she sarcastically said, "Thanks again for helping the world remind me how gracefully I'm aging." Am I the jerk here? I was just defending this poor girl who clearly just spoke her mind. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
Awkward.
Touched by a Karen. I've worked in retail and customer service positions my whole life and frequently get mistaken for an employee when I'm not. I've gotten used to it, and for the most part I understand it. Oftentimes it happens when I'm running errands after work in my black uniform slacks and the basic shirts I wear underneath my work logo embroidered button-downs. I also carry around a large keyring of jingle keys. I can't really blame people under those circumstances. Anyway, here's my most recent interaction for your, hopefully, enjoyment. I was shopping at a large chain pharmacy on an unusual mission to spend a $400 health benefit card that was about to expire. It only worked on certain items, so I was having to spend a decent amount of time finding things that qualified that my household could actually use. Out of the corner of my eye, occasionally kept seeing this same little old lady. Over and over, I was catching glances of her peering down aisles at me. I assumed because of my outfit that day. It was my day off, and I was wearing my punk rock adjacent street clothing. I'm used to stares and glares, for even though my style has toned down with age, I paid no mind and kept shopping. About 45 minutes into my mission, my cart was nearly full, and I was focused on reading fine print ingredients on some product. I hear someone's throat clear. I look up and see the little old lady. She looks me up and down several times. I have my hair in a messy rat's nest ponytail on top of my head, black and white striped drain pipe jeans, Doc Martens, and a black t-shirt with "Touched by Satan" in large print on an image of Satan touching someone on the shoulder with a speech bubble saying, "Tag, you're it," causing them to burst into flames. I push my glasses back up my nose and look at her. She stares at my shirt. I stare back at her. She adjusts her glasses, clears her throat again, and raises her eyes to meet mine. We make prolonged, awkward eye contact. I'm silent, internally flinching, expecting to get backlash about my shirt, and finally she says,
"Do you work here?"
I am completely dumbfounded. No, I don't.
Oh, that's... I thought you worked here, since you have a cart filled with so much... I just was hoping for some help finding laundry detergent. I'm sorry.
She pursed her lips and looked puzzled and embarrassed. Well, I don't work here, but I do shop here often, so I know where it is. Follow me, I'll show you. She made a sound like she was going to protest, but I strode off with confidence to lead her to the detergent. She followed. I pointed out the detergent section once we were in eyeshot. After she spotted it, she smiled warmly back at me and said,
"Thank you, sweetie. You have a good day."
I wished her the same and went back to finish my shopping. After 15 plus years of getting grief over my clothing choices, this confusing interaction warmed my heart. Hopefully, it warms 1 or 2 hearts here on Reddit. Thanks for reading. Apologies for any formatting issues. This was written on a mobile device. Have you ever gotten any weird looks for something you were wearing? If so, what were you wearing? Please let us know.
Everywhere I go, people point at me and whisper. They're probably just complimenting my shirt.
Am I the jerk for telling my aunt I'm not gonna follow her relationship advice because she's a quadruple divorcee? I'm currently single, but for some reason, my aunt has decided I need advice on how to keep a man. I'm not sure why she's focused on my dating life, but it's her favorite subject of conversation. Regardless of how often she's told to stop or change the subject, she still insists on giving me advice. Her advice is bad. For example, she's told me to not let my future boyfriend be friends with other women, not let him go out alone unless it's to work, make him pay for everything, make a list of relationship rules for him to follow. These are just the ones that stood out as awful to me, and they must be wrong because my aunt has now been divorced 4 times. It's always her exes who initiate the divorce, but all she ever says about the divorce is that her exes are weak men who don't understand how to sustain a healthy relationship with a mature woman. She stopped by today and within 30 minutes started dishing out her advice to me again. She'd been asked to stop twice at this point, but was still mid-rant. I couldn't take it anymore, so I loudly said, "Why would I follow the relationship advice of someone who's been divorced 4 times by the age of 50? She stared at me and then went mental, like crying while shouting about how I was rude, cruel, and arrogant, and that I should be grateful someone was willing to help me get a relationship after being single for so long. I'm 18. I'm happy being single right now. She left shortly after this, Mom's telling me bringing up Aunt's divorces was an unnecessary low blow, and I should have just ignored her because she had good intentions. Dad just said, she had it coming, and hasn't mentioned it again. I'm starting to have second thoughts about how I handled it, because she is sensitive about her divorces and being single again at her age, but I couldn't think of another way to get her to stop. So, am I the jerk? What do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is the aunt the jerk? Please let us know.
I agree with the dad. It was only a matter of time.
I do work here, just not, here. I'll start this story by saying that I've been in some form of customer service for most of the past 45 years. Yep, I'm an old geezer. In all those years, I've had more than a few ridiculous customers, including one man who threatened to hurt me because his credit application was turned down. But I've never really had a Karen or Chad, whatever you call a male Karen. Today I thought it was all about to change. I'm retired and working part-time for a friend who manages a large discount store. Clothing, housewares, home decor, etc. My job is shoes. That's it. I process the hundreds of shoes that get there daily. I spend my days in the back stock room. On days when there aren't a lot of shoes, I'll help run out the other stock. On this day of days, I was doing just that. I had a big rolling shelf, chock full of impulse buys. Those inexpensive items that stores always put up front by the registers when it happened. There's a longish line of people waiting to check out, and as I'm rearranging a section to work in the new goodies, I hear a guy speaking to me. Nobody ever speaks to me.
You could jump on that open register.
Oh, happy day, joy of joys. Today, I finally get me a Karen, and a boy Karen to boot. I've read hundreds of stories on Reddit, and I'm not the shrinking violet that seems to attract them. I'm a jerk. Messing with jerks is my hobby. I smile at him. I can't do that.
How come?
He asks. Well, it's actually the same reason that you can't do it. I don't know how. I'm ready to go. I've waited my whole life for Karen or her husband. Today is my day. This is practically my big O. I'm locked and loaded. The man looks at me for a second. He's thinking of some smart comeback. Come on, dude. Give me your best shot.
Actually, that's a really good reason.
He chuckles. Wait, what? But, Mr. Karen, you're supposed to be mean, insane. What the heck? Now I gotta go regroup. I point to the 3 or 4 young ladies who are cashiering. They only have the pretty girls up front. They usually just keep the ugly old dude in the back. But I escaped, I told him. He laughs again.
That's a really good policy. As an ugly old dude myself, I'd much rather get checked out by the pretty girls than by another old guy.
He gets called up next.
Have a great rest of your day, he says as he heads over to one of the pretty girls.
Well, crap. So today's not my day. Dang you, nice old dude. I know you're out there, Mr. or Mrs. Karen, and I'm waiting. Aspiring CEO wants people to work for her for free and calling a cop on me when I tried to help. Karen, an aspiring CEO of a startup, was a roommate in a shared house I lived in during my internship at a tech company. Her fear is that someone would steal her startup idea, so the first time we met, she asked whether I worked at her competitors. She then introduced me to F, whom she called her friend, and she said was always willing to drive her around for shopping. Later I realized that's her definition of friends, people whom she could use. F is also a freelance graphic designer whom Karen hired to design her pitch deck. As months go by, F and I got closer as we have similar hobbies, and soon he confided in me that Karen hasn't paid him for the hours he did her last deck. Karen has been telling everyone in the house that she's broke, so F felt bad for asking his payment, but F needed the money too. I merely cheered him up and said nothing other than, let's hope she'll get her funding soon with the new deck. Then Karen asked F to change some numbers in the slides because she said investors would like to see the updated numbers, and F refused to do so until Karen paid him for the last job, or at least signed a written agreement that she would pay in installments by a deadline. In the meantime, seeing that F and I were spending a lot of time together, which means she lost her driver, Karen was talking behind my back with other housemates, accusing me of being a bad and evil roommate, cheating on my partner with F. Once, after asking when my internship would end, she suddenly just told me to leave my partner and stay with F. I just smiled and said it's none of her business. F and I were just friends. I would leave the area once my internship ended, back to my partner of 7 years, and F knew that for a fact. I guess she also thought that I convinced F to never help her again with her deck. I did no such thing. F is an adult and could make his own decisions on what to do with his life. So basically, Karen was trying to kick me out of the house, as she had done once to another roommate, and was proud of it. However, she didn't get any support from the others because everyone else was also fed up with her. So Karen decided to move out because she felt the house's environment is toxic. I was relaxing on my bed. We were sharing a bedroom while she was packing her stuff. Then, Karen,
Hey, I'm moving out. I hope you treat F well. Everyone was sad that I'm losing a good friend like him.
Me, sure, he's a friend. I won't use my friends. Karen,
Well, you made him lose his job and income.
she meant designing her deck.
Investors are waiting for the new deck. Your personal life is ruining my startup.
Me, hey, don't drag me into your problem with him. I have nothing to do with it. If you have a problem with him, talk to him. Don't talk to me. Karen,
Of course it has everything to do with you. He's in love with you. Can't you see it?
me, rolling my eyes. What happened between me and F is none of Karen's business. It shouldn't interfere with her professional relationship with F either. The problem is that you haven't paid him. Solve that issue professionally. Don't make it personal.
He refused to help me with my deck because of you. I told my friends about it. They were livid.
Me, see, that's exactly your problem. Instead of talking to him directly, you talked to other people about it. Bullseye. After that, she was spouting things that didn't make any sense. She said I don't know anything about how startups work. Her mom is sick and could lose the money she put into her daughter's startup. And whose fault is that? She's now broke and trying so hard to get funding for her startup, so she desperately needs her new deck. I put on my headphones trying to sleep. Wasn't really interested in hearing her whining about her life. I needed to get up early for work the next day while she was usually still on the bed, swiping her phone, even when I was ready to leave for work. The perks of being a startup founder. She then started sending F threatening emails, demanding he send her the raw files of the design ASAP and to sign an NDA because she's afraid people will steal her idea and research data. F refused because he didn't want that she could trick another designer to do it for her for free. I wanted to free F of Karen's hateful emails and to help Karen as well, so I sent her a message through LinkedIn. Not our first exchange. She once asked me where I was one night, not sleeping at the house. I was at my company outing. I have screenshots of the conversation, so this is accurate. Me. Hi Karen, instead of wasting your time harassing someone you can't afford to pay to work for you, you could change the deck yourself. Continued explaining how to convert PDF to other editable formats. Karen.
This is your fault. You don't understand startups. Get your personal life out of my company. If you're unable to get yourself out, third parties will. You have until midnight to get yourself out of my company so it can proceed properly. If you contact me again, I'm calling the police for harassment and looking into a restraining order.
Karen.
Calling the police.
Me. I agree. I have no idea how startups work. But if I were a startup founder, I would try to persuade people to work for me with my passion for my ideas, not with aggression, threats, and by meddling into their private life. You should really separate business from personal matters. I was writing my long reply, so I didn't read her last message about restraining order and calling police when I hit send. My original intention was to help F by helping Karen, but looking back now, I was at fault here, giving unsolicited advice layered with some judgments and critics. I'm not proud of what I did, but at least I learned my lesson, not to repeat the same mistake. After that, I stopped sending messages. It's hopeless, I thought, as she wanted. But, Karen.
Get your personal life the heck out of my company. You have until midnight to make things right. Investors are waiting for a fixed deck.
Karen.
If your personal life is in my company, have F send an editable version to this guy to fix. He's in tech. Here's his contact information for you.
Putting a link to my partner's website.
I really am contacting police if you reach out to me again. Please stop. I asked you to stop. Lurking on my LinkedIn needs to stop.
At that point, I felt like I was the one being harassed, since I said absolutely nothing and she kept messaging me. What creeps me out is that she stalked me online, found out who my partner is, possibly from Facebook, then Googled his name to get into his website. My partner is my colleague. We both have PhDs in computer science. So sure, both of us know how to edit presentation slides as we make our lectures, but I was a bit offended when she simply said, "He's in tech," and expected him to fix her slides. Anyway, she was proven to be delusional, so I blocked her on LinkedIn and Facebook. I guess she didn't know this feature exists, otherwise she would simply do that when she desperately wanted me to stop contacting her. I wonder how her startup is doing now. I got to scare a thief. I used to work as a retail supervisor for a hospital hotel for years. I got a lot of stories during that time, but this one is one of my favorites. The first time we see the person in question, he was grabbing a tray and heading over to the soup bar. I remember distinctly that he was wearing a very bright, memorable Hawaiian shirt. I was working the register, so I had a pretty good vantage point of most of the area customers would be, which makes it easier to keep an eye on everyone and everything. The man came up with his tray of soup, staring straight ahead. Worried he would pass me and forget to pay, I said in my winning customer service voice, "Hello, sir." He kept walking. "Sir, you have to pay for that." Still no response, and he didn't even speed up his walk. "Sir, sir!" Being a woman on the short side, there was no way for me to stop him, so I picked up the phone and dialed security. The man decided to walk out into our courtyard, which just so happened to not double as an exit. Security came to me, asked me about what had happened, then went to go talk to the individual. He ended up being escorted off the premises, and we thought that was that, just a very bold thief. But no, it couldn't stop there. It was a slow day, so hours later I was chatting with a coworker, me behind my counter, my coworker on the other side. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a very familiar Hawaiian shirt. The thief had returned. Now, for me personally, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, so I didn't say anything at first, but I did keep half an eye on him while I chatted with my work friend. On the complete other side of the room from where I was, trust me, huge room, I saw the man pick up a bag of chips and stuff them in his shirt. I was pretty ticked off, so before I could think, hesitate, or finish the sentence I was on in my conversation, Big Sister voice came out, and I yelled in a voice that is often used to frighten bigger people than me, "Sir, put those chips back right now!" My coworker was frozen in place with surprise and confusion, and the man's eyes were huge. There was silence for a few moments as I did my best to keep up the stern expression I had. He walked over to me, and it was suddenly very obvious how much smaller I was. Without saying a word, he took the chips out of his shirt, laid them down on the counter in front of me, and trudged away. For years after that, it was my coworker's favorite story of me, and one I tend to chuckle at now. Am I the jerk for not giving my pregnant friend my old baby items after I found out she's selling them? I, female 32, just had my third and final kid. He's 5 months old now. I have loads of baby things from my older kids and also some things I bought brand new. My friend, Tina, who's 37, is currently pregnant with her first. I offered her all my unused baby items along with everything my babies grow out of by the time she's due in December. She likes to shop in secondhand stores, so my baby items certainly weren't beneath her. Baby stuff is so expensive, and when she offered me money for them, I declined, saying I was happy to help her out and see them go to a good home. The items offered included cots, swings, bouncers, clothes, pumps, and a lot more. Last weekend, I dropped my first lot of stuff over as I didn't want to have clutter in my house till December. I brought over all my 0 to 6 month clothes, some still new in packaging, the pump, one swing, and a baby monitor. The next day, I got a Facebook notification that someone I knew posted items for sale on Marketplace. It was Tina, selling everything I dropped over. I was livid and called her to explain myself. She told me she didn't see the big deal. She was going to sell them and use the money towards brand new items. I saw red, went over to her face, and took everything back. I told her she wouldn't be getting everything else I was going to give her either. The way I see it, I gave her those things to be helpful and would have sold them myself if she hadn't taken them. Why should she profit off of me? Later that day, her boyfriend calls me and screams down the phone about how disgusting I am to do that to Tina while she's pregnant and how crappy of a friend I am. But I'm digging my feet in. I really don't think what I did was a jerk move. If anything, she's the jerk for selling my kindness. So, Reddit friends, am I the jerk? Should I be bringing this stuff back to her? ETA. I would have donated a lot of the clothes and smaller items to our local charity for the homeless and single parents in need of aid, and only sold the bigger items such as the cot. My rage was her taking away from them and making money out of it. ETA 2. When she offered me money for them, she said, "Oh, you're so kind for giving me all of this for baby. It's so hard to baby shop with what's going on. I really should give you something for it." I told her no, and I was just happy to help her out, and she thanked me for making it easier for her. Had she told me that her intent was to sell them, I wouldn't have given her anything and instead offered to buy her something off her baby registry. Am I the jerk if I keep the money a patient left me? I'm 22, female, and I'm a CNA and I do home care. I used to take care of this man who was in his late 90s. He was super sweet, World War II veteran, and a smart guy. He progressively, obviously, got worse as he aged. His daughters were there a lot to watch him / take care of him, but they got frustrated with him and would yell or storm out. I was pretty much the only person to not yell at him. When he became incontinent, he still would have the urge to go to the bathroom and would try to actually go use the urinal, but his daughters kept telling him to ignore it and just go in his brief instead. It was a mess. I didn't know he had a good amount of money stashed away. The house was small and relatively not well kept. The only real valuable stuff were medals he won from photography contests. I used to take him on drives and help him in a wheelchair, and he would tell me all kinds of stories from whatever places we would go to. He recently passed from natural causes. As he got worse, the daughters became more frustrated with him and his inability to be independent. He couldn't walk much, let alone stand. He would shake and fall back, and he started to become more forgetful. I don't think the daughters didn't love him. I mean, they took care of him, but the last couple of years of his life were kind of miserable. They argued constantly. When he passed, I was allowed to attend the funeral to pay my respects. A while later, I found out he left me a sum of money to help with college, and that he wanted me to go on to do great things like we had talked about. He said I was going to make a great doctor, and there was a pretty emotional letter in it. He left the house to his daughters and some of the money to them, but most of it was left to me, $150,000. The daughters were mad, tried saying I was a horrible person, that I was probably doing him favors I shouldn't have been, and they tried to get me fired ever since by constantly calling my company. My company's HR asked me if I knew anything about this, and I said no. This has been a total mess. They said the right thing to do is to give the money to them. There's 3 daughters, all in their 50s and one in her 60s. I thought about doing it, but quite frankly, I don't want to. They didn't treat him that well, and it's not like he didn't leave them anything. They also are all well off themselves and work nice jobs. He wasn't cognitively impaired, no Alzheimer's or dementia of any kind. The change in his will was made over a year ago before he became more confused and weak. I told my mom, and she said it would be rude to disrespect his wishes, that I took good care of him. We struggled with money for a long time, and she sees this as a gift, so I don't have to worry about debt. She's not asking for any of it. So, am I the jerk if I keep the money?
Yes, it's my truck. And no, you can't buy it for $50. This is long, so grab a cup of coffee, tea, or whatever keeps you happy and reading. I live in a senior housing community for people aged 55 and older. We all have identical one-bedroom cottages that's set up in groups of 4 or quads so that all of our front doors face inward towards each other. So if I open my front door, I have a very clear view of the front doors of my 3 neighbors, and because I'm in the back of this quad, I also have a view of the parking area. I think the purpose of grouping the houses this way was to create a friendly and safe atmosphere. However, it's just creepy in a you have no privacy kind of way. I'm female, 57, disabled, and have a 16-year-old pickup truck that gets me where I need to go most of the time. If you've ever owned a pickup truck, you'll understand my frustration. If you haven't owned one, talk to anyone who has, and they will tell you that according to friends, families, acquaintances, neighbors, and even complete strangers, you have it so that you can help them move, haul furniture, or a tree they cut down, or anything else they can't fit in the trunk of their car. And because it is a pickup truck, it can be mistreated, dented, scratched, beaten up, and treated like a piece of heavy construction equipment, and you shouldn't care because, well, it's a truck. I have a neighbor, female, about 65 years old, that has kind of made a pest of herself since the day I moved in. I've done my best to be neighborly, nice, and accommodating, but each time I interact with her, I'm left feeling used. The neighbor, let's call her Karen, has come over pretending to want to visit me, which she does for about 2 minutes, and then asks me for something. In the 3 years that I've been here, she's asked me to set up 2 TVs at different times, take a new alarm clock out of its packaging, and then teach her how to operate it. I've been asked to fill out her food stamp paperwork, fill out information for her lease renewal, read a piece of mail to her and explain it because she didn't understand it, to take her places, and to loan her money for the bus. That's just a few. Now that you get the idea of what I've dealt with before, it's time for the story. One Monday morning, Karen comes beating on my door. She does what I call a cop knock, hard, loud, and repeatedly, around 8 a.m., waking me up. I'm a night owl, by the way. I go to the door and she's standing there holding her natural gas bill, telling me how she needed a ride to the gas company's office to talk to them about paying the bill, and hands me the bill. I look at it, hoping to find a number for her to call, but there isn't one. But I do see that her bill is for about $17. So I take her across town with her providing the directions since I had never been to this building. The gas company did not have an office in town, so I guess this was maybe a payment center. I drop her off at the front door, park, and wait for her. Karen comes out saying that they can't help her there and asks me if she could just call them to make arrangements to make payments since she didn't have the money. I tell her that's what I would do,
and bring her back home. We basically made this trip for nothing. 2 days later, there's another loud, repeated banging on my door, waking me up just before 9 a.m. Karen is back and seems to be a little frantic. She needs a ride again. This time, she's very vague about why she wants to go, but left me with the impression that something was going to get turned off, repossessed, or turned over to collections if she didn't go. She's also vague as to where she wants to go. She keeps telling me that it's down by the casino, across the street from the gas station. I tell her I'd take her, but she would have to point me in the right direction since I've never been to the casino. She gives me turn-by-turn directions until she has me turn left onto the entrance road for the casino. I'm looking around for any other businesses or even the gas station, and I'm not seeing anything other than the casino in front of us and open land on either side. So I ask her where am I supposed to be dropping her. Karen points to an upcoming sign and says,
See the sign that says valet? Just follow that sign.
Yep, you guessed it. Karen had me drop her at the front entrance to the casino. She had lied to me by omission. She didn't ask me to take her to the casino, which I would probably have done since it's none of my business how she spends her money. She asked me to take her to a business near the casino. Yeah, well, I wasn't happy. On Monday, she couldn't afford to pay her $17 gas bill, and on Wednesday, she's going to the casino by tricking me into taking her. A week goes by, and I'm in the office paying my rent when Karen comes in. Karen,
Why didn't you tell me you were coming here today? Girl, I just walked all the way here.
Me, didn't know you needed a ride. I can give you a ride back to the house if you'd like. I wait while Karen pays her rent and we walk out together. Now, I'm expecting to get in my truck and drive the 4 blocks back to my house. Karen had another idea. Karen,
Take me to Everything's Cheap store.
me, where?
To Everything's Cheap. Just turn around here at the stop sign and I'll show you. It's not far.
Me, Karen, I'm going to take you there, but I'm not shopping and I'm not going to sit in the parking lot and wait for you. You'll have to get another ride home or walk. Karen,
It's fine. I won't be long.
I drop her at the front door and I go home. A couple hours later, she bangs on my door. Karen,
Where did my ride go?
me, home. I told you that I wasn't going to wait for you.
I had all my stuff that I had to carry home. Now my back hurts.
Me, I'm sorry, but I warned you. Karen walks away muttering things that I didn't understand and slammed her door. Skip ahead several months and I run into Karen again as I'm paying my rent. She wants me to give her a ride to the Social Security office. I tell her that I can't, as my truck is not running right and I can't get too far from home in it until I get it checked out and fixed. My truck started having issues and it's been difficult trying to get it fixed with lockdown, a back issue that left me bedridden for several weeks, and 2 major hurricanes this year. There's nothing major wrong with the truck, just needs a new starter and gaskets to fix an oil leak that's caused the starter to go bad. Karen,
But it's just a few blocks away and it's hot out here.
me, I can't trust my truck not to leave me stranded with no way to get it home. Karen,
It will be fine.
me, maybe, but I'm not willing to risk it. Karen slaps the side of my truck and continues on our walk, and I go home in my truck. Another 3 days go by, and more banging on my door, and again I'm awakened. It's 7:15 a.m. This time I'm angry, and I snatch the door open. Me,
What?
Karen, standing there with her purse and house keys in her hand as if she knows I'll say yes.
I need to go to the mattress store. I need to pick up my new queen-size mattress.
Me, no, my truck still isn't running right.
But I need your truck to hold the mattress home.
Me, no. Karen,
It's not a heavy mattress.
oh, so who's going to help you get it in and out of my truck and carry it into your house?
The 2 of us can do it.
Me, Karen, I have degenerative disc disease. The discs in my spine are disintegrating. I can't lift nor carry a mattress even with someone helping.
But I already bought it. How am I going to get it home?
Call friends or family to help you.
They don't have a truck, and you do.
Me, yes, I have a truck, but there is no sign anywhere on it that says Free Moving Company. I close the door on her and go back to bed. An hour later, more knocking. This time it's an older man. Man 1. Excuse me, but is that your truck? He points at my truck in the parking lot. Me. Yes. Man. I have an upright piano I need to move and was wondering if I could use your truck. Me. No. I glance over at the neighbor's house and I see her peeking through a crack in the door. I have a sneaking suspicion she has put this guy up to this to see if I would help him. Man. You can drive the truck.
I just need to have the piano hauled to my storage unit.
Me. How are you going to get an upright piano into the bed of my truck?
I'll just roll it on a ramp and put it into the back.
Me. Do you know how much an upright piano weighs? One person can't push it up a ramp. If you use a ramp on my tailgate, you will break the tailgate and probably lose the piano in the process. My truck is large, but the rear end is not made for hauling a piano and will cause the front end to lift off the ground, preventing my front wheel drive from gaining traction and straining my 16-year-old engine. Man.
Well, could you call 4 or 5 of your male friends to help lift it into the back of the truck?
Me. No! I closed the door on this man too. He didn't come right out and say it, but I felt like he wanted to borrow my truck so he could go pick up the mattress for Karen. Yeah, I'm a little suspicious. The following morning, I ignore the knocking that occurs every half or so hours over a 3-hour period until she finally gives up. Later that afternoon, I open my door to get the mail out of the box when a second man approaches me out of nowhere. It's like he was hiding around the corner, waiting for me to come out of my house. Man 2 points at my truck. It irritates me every time someone does this.
Is that your truck?
Me, feeling very annoyed and snarky.
What gave it away? Is it because it's parked in a space, clearly labeled with my house number? Or is it because someone told you who the truck belonged to?
I point at Karen's house. Man 2.
Does it run?
Me.
Listen, I don't know what you're wanting me to pick up, deliver, move, haul, transport, or tow, but I am not a moving company, taxi, Uber, delivery service, or a tow truck. I won't be doing any of those things, and before you ask, I won't be allowing you or anyone else to drive my truck either. Now, do you have any other questions?
Man 2.
Do you want to sell it?
Me.
What? Why would I want to sell it? Well, since it needs fixing, I thought maybe you would want to sell it to someone who could afford to fix it.
Me. How do you know it needs fixing? Man 2 turns bright red and can't take his eyes off the ground.
I just thought if you sold it, you could buy something else, and I could fix the truck.
Me. Tell Karen that I'm not selling you my truck so that you can fix it to give to her. Man 2.
I wasn't going to give it to her.
Me, pointing at his huge truck parked in Karen's designated space. You want me to believe that you would rather have my 16-year-old truck that needs repair than your brand new truck? How stupid do you think I am? As the older man silently stares at the ground, Karen flings her door open and marches up to me. Karen.
Just sell him your truck so he can fix it. You clearly aren't going to do it anytime soon. At least I will put it to good use. And need it, and I need it more than you apparently do. Now, he's willing to get it fixed for me, so just sell him the dang truck already.
Me. My truck is not for sale. When or if I get my truck fixed, it's absolutely none of your business. Karen.
I'm going to call the office and tell them that you have a broken down truck sitting in the parking lot that needs to be hauled to the junkyard. They'll make you get rid of it or fix it.
Man 2. Karen, they can't do anything to her. Karen cuts him off. She's so angry, she's crying, shaking, and spitting as she screams.
Shut up! Stay out of this. I want that truck, and I'm going to get it. I'll call the police. They will make her get rid of it.
Man 2. Karen, the police aren't. She cuts him off again.
Yes, they will. They'll listen to me.
She storms off to call the police. In the meantime, I brought a chair outside, along with a can of soda and a bowl of microwave popcorn. I figured this was going to be a good show. Karen and Man 2 have gone inside her house to wait. The neighbor to my left has come out to see what's going on. Let's call her Mary. Mary can't stand Karen, so she drags a chair out too and sits next to me, and we share my popcorn. Enter Cop 1 and Cop 2. The cops arrive in about 5 to 6 minutes and walk up to Karen's door and knock, while glancing around at Mary and me and grinning. She answers and tells them that I have created an eyesore in the neighborhood by having an old, beat-up, broken-down truck sitting in the parking lot, and she wants it removed immediately. Cop 1, pointing at my truck. Yep, he does it too, and I can't help but roll my eyes. That truck? Karen.
Yes.
Cop 1. That truck is clean, shiny, no dents, no scratches, new tires. Are you sure that's the eyesore? Karen.
Yes, it's 10 years old and broken, and she doesn't want to fix it. It's just sitting there doing nothing for months.
Me. It's 16 years old. Cop 2 spins around, surprised. Seriously? That truck is that old? Wow, it's in great shape. You've taken good care of her. Me. Thank you. Karen.
I want that truck gone.
Cop 2 walks over to me to discuss my truck's mechanical history. So I explain to him that in the 16 years that I have owned her, I've changed her oil every 3 to 4 months, given her a bath once a month, got her a new set of tires 6 years ago, and when I first began having problems with her starting, I bought a new battery. The old one was the original battery from when I bought the truck off the showroom floor, and when the battery wasn't the problem, I had a mechanic come and look at it. He determined that it was the starter and the gasket was leaking. All I was waiting on was my friend to come and help me start her. Someone needs to get under the truck and tap the starter while someone else turns over the ignition so that I can get it to the mechanic's house for him to work on it. Karen:
She's lying. That truck hasn't moved in 3 months.
Me, offering popcorn to Cop 2, who took a handful. Wrong. It hasn't moved in 4 days. It's had problems for 3 or 4 months. Cop 1: Miss Karen, there really isn't anything the police department can do for you. Her truck definitely isn't an eyesore, nor is it sitting there in pieces, creating a safety hazard. Karen:
She's driving down property values.
Cop 1 starts chuckling. Miss Karen, you are renting a house in government-subsidized senior housing. Cop 2: Why don't you tell us the real reason why you want her truck removed? Mary, who has been silent until now, stands up and turns on her best diva soul sister voice and attitude and gives the cops the greatest, deep south, beautiful black woman sermon I've ever heard. I'll try to write as best I can.
Oh Lord Jesus, help us all. This here woman of the night want everything she can't have. Lord, I think it's 'cause she pulls her hair back so tight. Lord, she can only see what's in the back of her mind. She wants her old saggy boy toy of the day here to buy my friend's pick-em-up truck so she can go and pick 'em up. Lord, If you're getting what I'm saying, he buy it and trade it to her for a little roll on her nasty sheets. Lord Jesus, help us. And she thinks she all hot. So you believe her and take away my friend's truck. She a fool. She thinks she can fool you too. How the heck do you think she got those 2 big TVs in there?
Cop 1 is bent over, laughing hysterically, while Cop 2 is standing with his mouth open and his eyes wide. Cop 2 turns to Man 2. Is any of that true? Man 2, embarrassed, humiliated, and just looking tired. She wanted the truck and $50. Karen and Man 2 are arrested. Not sure what the exact charges were, but I heard words being thrown around like pandering, solicitation, scamming, and false complaint among others. A couple of days later, Mary told me that Karen returned home. I guess she found a way to get bailed out. I haven't seen her, and I'm hoping that I don't. As for my pick-em-up truck, I'm still waiting to get her to the mechanic. My friend will be here on his next day off. He doesn't get them often, to help me. It's a good thing I'm a patient person with a super diva as a friend and neighbor. It's also good to know that my truck is at least worth one 20-minute roll on the sheets and $50. Edit. Thank you for the awards, everyone. And just a little side note for those of you rolling your eyes at the fact that I offered a cop popcorn and he took it. I live in the deep south in a smallish college town. The cops here are helpful, friendly, until provoked, and generally good guys. When construction workers stole from me after Hurricane Laura, 2 cops came to investigate, and afterwards I offered them both a bottle of water and they accepted. Have you ever had someone try to use you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
You use me in these videos all the time, Mr. Reddit. I'm the only reason people watch.
Entitled parent decides to mess with me in the checkout line. I finally had my Karen in the Wild experience yesterday morning. I live in the southeastern US, and we have a popular small box retailer here with a yellow sign in black letters. They are all over the rural south and in many places act as grocery and general stores to the community. I needed to stop and get an item for my vehicle before I ran morning errands, so I dropped in at our local neighborhood store, found the item and a couple of other things I wanted, and got in line. I am very conscientious about wearing a mask when I go out and steering very clear of those who don't. The line was fairly long for a Saturday morning, and I was then 3rd or 4th customer in line. This store funnels all customers into a sort of a tunnel lined with impulse purchases, lighters, candy, magazines, small toys, that sort of thing, for checkout, and there are 3 cashier stations along the line. Only one was manned at that point. The customer in front of me was a late 30-ish woman with a daughter who looked to be about 10 or so. This was entitled Mom and OK Kid. The kid wasn't so bad. She had on a cute dog face mask, but entitled Mom wasn't wearing one at all. She was pushing a half-full cart of items. OK Kid asks for a candy bar, and entitled Mom says it's okay. Kid reaches for a nearby bar of candy. Then entitled mom starts looking at the candy, scanning the rows, and her eyes find what she wants near where I am standing. Luckily, the person behind me was not only standing at least 6 feet back, but had a cart between us as well. So as the entitled mom came towards me, I started backing away. She kept coming closer, and I kept backing up, which she noticed. When I hit the cart behind me, she smiled at me and said, "Looks like you're trapped," and kept coming towards me. Well, I walk with a cane. At that point, I raised the cane so that it was between us and said, "Please stop coming towards me. You aren't wearing a mask." She stopped and laughed, then said, "Are you going to hit me with your cane, old lady?" I glared at her and said, "If you come any closer, I will. I'm feeling very threatened." She laughed again, then put her hand up to her ear and said, "What? Couldn't hear you. Say again. Your mask is making it hard to understand you." And laughing. Then her daughter started laughing too. About that time, another employee came over to open the second register, which I was standing directly in front of. Usually they say, "I can help the next customer here." But instead, she said, "I can ring you up, ma'am," to me. I put my purchases down on the counter and she reached for the first item to scan. Entitled mom said, "Hey, wait, I was next," and started backing up toward me again, with her cart in tow. The cashier said, "Ma'am, you have already passed me. The next cashier will have to take care of you." Entitled mom didn't like this, but turned back forward to see the first cashier had already finished ringing up the customer in front of entitled mom and had turned her station light off, signaling that she was closed. Entitled mom said, "Hey, where are you going? You haven't rung me up." The first cashier said, "Sorry, I'm scheduled for my break now, and I will get written up if I don't go on time," and walked away out the door. Entitled mom is now fuming and turns back to the second cashier. Entitled mom waits for my cashier to be done with my purchase, then starts to back up again. This makes it impossible for me to leave, as we are in that tunnel, and I said, "Ma'am, you are going to have to go forward and leave the tunnel so I can get out." She stops and says, "Oh, just squish by me. You act like I have the plague or something." I looked directly at her and said, "As far as I am concerned, you do." She huffed and pushed her cart forward and out of the tunnel, and I was able to squeeze by her safely. Behind me, I heard the cashier start ringing up the customer behind me who had a pretty full cart, and I turned and saw that the line behind me had 5 people in it now. The entitled mom yelled, "Hey, I was next!" And as I was going out the door, she turned her buggy back into the tunnel the wrong way. Then I heard the cashier say, "Ma'am, you can't come back in here the wrong way. You have to get back in line." Unintelligible barking came from the entitled mom as I went out the door. I admitted, I was grinning behind the mask. As I was getting into my vehicle, the first cashier was around the corner of the store having a smoke break. She finished her cigarette, put it in the ash post, and said, "I hate people like that. We love messing with them. Sorry she bothered you." I laughed out loud at that point and said, "Hey, this will make a good story for Reddit." She laughed too and went on in the store. No idea what entitled mom did after that, but I noticed as I passed her when I left the store that she was wearing a scrub top for a local pediatrician's office. Think I might make a phone call on Monday asking them how they feel about one of their staff terrorizing those in the community who choose to wear a mask and socially distance. P.S. Ladies, if either of you read this, thank you. I appreciate you being there for us. Am I the jerk for kicking out my sister after she tried to flirt with my husband? I, 27 female, have a little sister, Emily, who's 20. My husband, 27 male, and I have been together since our college days. Back when we started dating, Emily then seemed to have this little crush on my husband, then boyfriend. She would blush in his presence, stutter while talking to him, etc. We assumed that the crush went away as she grew older, and her behavior indicated so. My husband thinks of Emily as the little sister he never had and treats her as such. We've not had much contact with Emily over the years as we live in a different state at the other side of the country, and she's been busy with her schooling. Last week, my parents and Emily were visiting our house for my birthday weekend. From the moment Emily arrived, she would not stop flirting with my husband, from excessively complimenting everything he did to proclaiming things like they would make a great pair, etc. My husband looked very uncomfortable, and so did my parents. I don't know how we got through the dinner. After the evening was done, my husband asked me if there was something wrong with Emily, and why was she behaving like that. He said she made him very uncomfortable and asked me to talk to her. So I found her alone and tried telling her that it was fine if she had/has a crush, but it's never fine to make anyone uncomfortable. I told her that it would be nice if she kept her distance for the remaining 2 days they were here, since he was not okay with this behavior. She said she wasn't being flirty or improper. I told her that she was indeed being inappropriate and that it was very creepy that she would try to flirt with my husband. She got very defensive and said that I was being insecure, and I quote,
"If I was really flirting with him, you wouldn't stand a chance."
I lost it at this point and told her that she's no longer welcome in our house and should buzz off the first thing in the morning. Emily and my parents left the very next day, even though my dad agreed that Emily's behavior throughout the evening was very inappropriate and that she should apologize to my husband. Mom thinks nothing of that sort happened and all three of us are being delusional, and that it was a wrong move to kick Emily, and by extension her, out of my house when they had traveled all the way here. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
If my sister tried something like that, she wouldn't be around much longer.
Following directions to adhere to company food safety procedures cost the company in excess of $25,000. Several years ago, I was working as the manager of the meat department in a large Australian supermarket chain. I had been pulled up for minor issues relating to food safety in the past, mainly relating to temperature checks and cabinet cleaning. During the discussions about these issues, I was told, as well as recorded in writing, that the food safety guidelines are a legal document and are not up for negotiation or interpretation and must be adhered to the letter. Remember that quote. Fast forward to a few days before Christmas. My store was one of the busiest in the region, so the meat case and cool rooms were packed to the absolute max with stock. Hams, roasts, turkeys, the whole works. It was the same store-wide, absolutely maxed out. Christmas in Australia is unlike most other places. It gets hot, dang hot. On this particular day, the temperature outside was pushing 45 degrees Celsius, approximately 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Aircon and fridges were all working hard to keep everything cool, when suddenly, at about 3 p.m., we have a store-wide blackout. Usually, we have a backup generator which would kick in and keep the cool rooms running, so the worst case, stock could be emptied out of the cabinets and into the rooms to keep it food safe. Well, for some reason, the generator didn't kick in and the store was completely without power and running on emergency lighting only. We evacuated the store and were contacting technicians, etc. to get things running again. I checked the food safety guidelines book, and the policy in such a situation was to monitor the temperature of stock every 15 minutes, and if it reaches over 4 degrees Celsius and stays there for more than 2 hours, all affected stock must be discarded. Being such a hot day, the temperature had already breached the 4 degrees upper limit when I did the first check, meaning the countdown was on to get things running again. I documented absolutely every step of the way, following the guidelines to the letter. At 4:45 p.m., with 15 minutes to go until the deadline, I went to the office and got a handheld scanner in preparation for what was to come, and was spotted by the store manager who asked what I was doing. I told him that I was getting it to begin dumping stock. We argued back and forth, with him saying that the stock would be fine and that a refrigerated truck was on the way to move everything into. It ended in me saying, "The guidelines are a legal document. By ordering me to go against what they say, you're instructing me to break the law, which I am respectfully refusing." At 5 p.m., I began scanning off and dumping stock from my case. I had already almost filled an entire dumpster with stock when the refrigerated truck turned up. The manager once again instructed me and the fellow department managers to take our now unsafe stock and move it into the truck. Everyone hesitated, but I flat out refused and continued dumping my stock. He eventually revoked my access to the handheld scanner in order to stop me, so I called the area manager, his boss, and explained the situation and what he had instructed. Area manager said although it was never public, there was actually some built-in wiggle room between the company policy and the legislated state code, and that although it breaches the company policy, the state food safety code hadn't yet been breached, but was furious that the store manager had instructed me to intentionally breach the company policy. I told the area manager that I had been instructed and documented to follow the food safety guidelines to the absolute letter, and that the policy was non-negotiable and not up for interpretation. He agreed that I had done the correct thing by dumping the stock, and also agreed that I was within my rights to refuse the orders of the store manager, thinking they were illegal. All in all, I dumped about $25,000 worth of stock, and my team got a ton of overtime to bring the case and stock levels back up to presentable standards for Christmas. The manager got a very severe reprimand and was fired for an unrelated issue not long after. Karen hid my credit card from me and claimed it was for my own good. I, male 25, live with my close friend Josh, also male 25, and his girlfriend Anna, who's 22. It used to be just Josh and I until lockdown started back in March and Anna permanently moved in. I get along okay with Anna, but we're not super close. I guess that establishes the group dynamics. Yesterday, I couldn't find my credit card. Josh and I searched the entire apartment for 2 hours, but we couldn't find it. Then walks in Anna, after her evening walk, and goes, "What are y'all up to?" To which I ask her if she's seen my credit card. She straight up says, "Yep, she has it." I was like, "What the heck are you doing with my credit card?" To which she said that I shouldn't worry as she didn't intend to use my card. She only took it to help with my addiction. What addiction? She thinks I'm a shopaholic and that I buy way too much useless crap. She saw some movie the night before where the protagonist had this condition and shopped herself into a crazy debt. That movie reminded her of me. She said, and I quote, "You're not there yet, but you will be if someone doesn't intervene." I was angry at this point because A, I do not have a shopping problem. Even if I did, I'm using my money that I worked hard for to buy things that I like. She's absolutely no one to try to poke her nose into my business. And B, her having my card meant that she came into my room, snooped through my stuff until she found the card, which is a gross violation of my privacy. So I asked her, rather loudly, to stay the heck away from my things and that I would call the cops on her if she tried pulling a stunt like this again. Josh was not aware of her stealing and he's siding with me. But Anna's trying to convince him that her intentions were pure and that I'm grossly overreacting and being a jerk to her. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you agree with, OP or Anna? Please let us know.
Just give the credit card to me. I'll make sure nothing happens to it.
Yes. Entitled mom blows up at me for enforcing safety rules on her kids. Okay, some backstory is necessary here. The place I work has a carousel, specifically one made back in the 1920s, that has a lot of strict rules for riding it to ensure safety. Only 2 of those rules really matter for this story. Rule 1. One ring of the horses is off limits because they aren't 6 feet apart. And Rule 2. Hold on to the horse while the carousel is moving. With that out of the way, let's begin. It was a pretty normal day at work for me, with a line of people waiting to ride, when I let this story's entitled mom and her 2 polite daughters onto the carousel. I gave my little spiel of the rules, then let them pass. Before I start the ride, I do a little walk around to make sure everyone is settled and see daughter 1 has chosen a horse that is off limits. So I walk up and politely remind her of the rule and ask if she would please move to a different horse. She apologizes and moves horses without a peep of complaint, so I start the ride. As I'm watching the ride turn, entitled mom's other daughter stops holding onto her horse. So to be audible over the music and the sound of the machinery, I cup my hands around my mouth and call, "Keep your hands on your horse, please." She holds on to her horse again, but I see entitled mom lean over and whisper to her daughter. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but I'm pretty sure now she was telling her daughter she didn't have to hold on. I say that because when the carousel came around again, the girl was not holding on anymore. So I politely, but loudly, reminded her a second time. Again, the girl grabs the horse, and entitled mom leans over and whispers something. When the carousel comes around again, I see the girl is again not holding on, so I stop the carousel. When it's no longer moving, I walk towards them and start to say, "Hey, I just need you to hold on for safety," when entitled mom gets up in my face and starts screaming at me.
You have no right to talk to my kids. You embarrassed my daughter by yelling at her. You do not get to talk to my kids.
I immediately back up and start trying to explain. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but it's my job. But she cut me off again.
No, you're not just. You're telling my kids what to do, and you have no right to do that. What is your name?"
At this point, I'm just crying because not only is this customer yelling at me, there's a lot of people in line watching this happen, and it's sending me into an anxiety attack. Luckily for me, my manager's office is nearby, so she comes out to check on what's happening. I don't know what she said to the entitled mom, because at that point I'd started having a full-blown panic attack. But the entitled mom and her kids were ushered away by my manager and one of my coworkers. I was later told they were kicked out entirely, while the other person I was working with led me to the office and set me down in a chair so I could calm down. Edit. Thanks everyone for the kind words and awards. This was my first encounter with an entitled parent.
People in my country are usually pretty understanding, so it means a lot to me that so many people are on my side. Speaking of carousels, have you ever been on a carousel? And if so, did you like it? Please let us know.
I'd rather go on a roller coaster, to be honest.
Would I be the jerk if I take my son's presents from under the tree and return them? I have a 13-year-old son who has ADHD and a mood disorder. He's always been very difficult since he was about 3 years old, with constant emotional outbursts and destructive behavior. We've been in and out of therapy and psychiatrist offices since he was 5. On to the issue. He has chores that he has to do daily. He was doing his chores today and he spilled water all over the floor and counter and didn't clean it up. This is a daily thing lately, and my husband has had to tell him every day to clean it up. My husband told him to clean it up, and my son only cleaned what he spilled on the counter. My husband got upset and called him lazy. Now, my son is lazy, but I honestly think his ADHD plays a huge role in things like this. This is why I don't know if we're the jerks. My son started saying that he's not lazy and saying, "What don't you understand about I didn't see it?" with an attitude to my husband. He then refuses to do his chores and storms upstairs to his room, where he starts destroying his things, ripping pages out of books, poking holes in things like boxes and even his sheets, ripping up comics and Pokemon cards, etc. My husband went upstairs and threw everything away that had been destroyed. After, my son doubled down and took his expensive puzzle that he had been working on that he just got for his birthday last month and takes it downstairs to be thrown away. We throw it away. He was still talking back and doing a poor me thing, so my husband told him that if he didn't do his chores, we would start taking his Xmas gifts and returning them. Reasoning being, if he doesn't take care of his things we get him and treats them like trash, why are we spending all of our hard-earned money on gifts for him? My husband is all about actually returning his gifts, but I'm having a hard time with it. While I think he needs some consequence, I feel like he can't control his emotions as well as others, and I don't want to ruin his Christmas over something he can't control. But I also don't want to enable him or prevent him from learning a lesson he may need to learn. So, would I be the jerk if we return all or most of his gifts? Edit. Since a lot of you seem to think I've done nothing to help him, again, he's been in and out of therapy. He starts to do well, then we are told he doesn't need therapy anymore and treatment ends. Right now, we've had a hard time finding a therapist that accepts our insurance and that is taking new patients. Waiting lists are 6 months or longer where I am, and that's with good insurance. He still sees a doctor for his medication, and this doctor is the only reason we have an appointment in a couple weeks with a behavioral health doctor, but they can only help with short-term issues and don't offer long-term treatment. Edit 2. Just had a talk with my son. He's calmed down and apologized. He said he was triggered by being called lazy, which my husband apologized for. He feels like he's bottled his emotions up for a long time. He feels like he's never been liked by his peers, and he feels like he can't control his reactions when he gets upset. These are all valid, and he's having a heart-to-heart about his peers with my husband right now. I think his lack of friends over the years has really hurt him, and he's lashing out. We won't be taking back his Christmas presents. We have an appointment in a couple weeks for short-term mental health and are on waiting lists for long-term therapy. Thank you to everyone who gave advice. To those who say I'm not parenting or I don't care about my son, you can buzz off. I fought for him since he was 5 to get fair treatment in school, and my family, and in life in general, and I will continue to do everything I can for him. Last edit. My husband has admitted to being the jerk. I should have intervened when I heard him call our son lazy because I knew that's not it, so I take responsibility too. We're going to get therapy for us as parents, as a very kind Redditor suggested. Well, what do you think? Would it be okay to return his Christmas gifts or not? Please let us know. Karen gets mad at me for not issuing a marriage license. Hey everyone, a little background info before we start. I work at a town hall. One of my tasks is issuing marriage licenses when lockdown restrictions ease up like they have. So, onto the story. This happened today. I had an appointment to issue a marriage license. I grab my mask, sanitize my hands, grab the different documents, and head down to one of our 10 by 10 rooms, big enough to have people standing 6 feet apart. Since the town hall's doors are locked to avoid walk-ins, I had to meet them at the door. Right away, this Karen had no mask. When I asked her to wear one, she said she was exempt, showing me a screenshot of a US exemption. We're in Canada. We're not allowed to ask people for proof, so I just dealt with it and pretend like she never showed me. I didn't ask. I asked her to sanitize her hands. Again, there was refusal. Oh well.
So we walk into the room. Our process for a marriage license is to have them bring their application, any prior divorce or death certificates, and IDs. I asked her if her partner was going to show up, and she said yes, so we wait for about 10 minutes. This puts the appointment a little late. We have 30 minutes for each appointment, and I had one in another room right after. Partner arrives, we exchange pleasantries, and we get started. I already checked their IDs and application by email, so I quickly recheck and write the info down on the marriage license. From there, I get into the lockdown questions. 1. Where is your wedding being held at? Answer.
Inside the church at X Street.
No big deal. We still allow church weddings if the group is less than 10. 2. Will you be having a reception? If yes, where? Answer.
Yes, and at X Banquet Hall.
Red flags are sailing, so I ask the third question. 3. How big is the group of attending? Answer. All giddy.
Well, for my group there's about 93 guests, and his side there will be 80 or so. We have more coming to the reception. I think in total there will be 200 people or so.
I looked up at her from the license, looked to the guy, then back at her, and explained that I couldn't issue a marriage license with a gathering that large. Indoors has to be less than 10, including the couple and the officiant. Outdoors can be 30, including the 3. Well, Karen immediately flips her crap, telling me I'm infringing her right to get married, that this is all a scam, that she should be allowed to get married because she's been planning this for 3 months and already paid for all the food, etc. I tried to de-escalate, telling her I couldn't because it's against the law. I handed her a pamphlet with lockdown safe marriage info and went to walk them out. She's still throwing a tantrum. She demands to speak to my manager, so I call her down. My manager was already busy dealing with other stuff, so she wasn't in the best mood. The Karen says I was belligerent, calling her names, didn't accept that she wouldn't wear a mask, etc. My manager looks at her. Well, why don't I pull up the footage and we can take a look? The Karen flips out more, saying the same stuff as before. My manager, being done with this, looks at her and says, no clerk in this city will issue a marriage license because it is against the law. We need to write down how many people will be at their celebration. You then have to post the green paper outside the venue, and an officer may or may not drop in. If we are found to issue a license and there are more people present, you will be fined. The clerk will no longer be able to give licenses, and we will be in a lot of trouble. As you told the clerk, you have only planned this for 3 months, which means you've had enough time to know what's going on. Because of your attitude to my clerk, we will no longer be accepting any appointments for you or your partner. As far as I'm concerned, you are banned. She then took the application, stamped rejected on it, and took it with her. We ended up having to call security to escort them out of the building. Oh, and as for her partner, he did nothing. Literally sat in the chair and did nothing. But at least he wore a mask. Am I the jerk for telling a kid she'll be evicted? Before I start, let me say that the kid in the title is about 14, not some helpless toddler. Background: I, 28 female, and my husband, 29 male, live on the bottom floor in a 2-story apartment complex. Our upstairs neighbors are horrible. We've had so many problems with these rude, loud, frankly gross people. The mom, 40-ish female, works at a gas station I go to, and I think that's the only place I've seen her wear shoes. Community laundry rooms? No shoes. Checking the mail? No shoes. Taking out trash? No shoes. Mom's boyfriend, 40-ish male, doesn't live there, but he might as well. I don't know what he does or if he even has a job, but I know he stomps like an elephant and shouts when he's mad. I can't go on my front porch when he's over because he smokes cigarettes on their balcony and I can smell it from downstairs. The daughter, 14, mostly keeps to herself. She used to say hello in passing, but stopped after I tried to talk to her about the stomping and the smoking and the waltzing through public areas with dirty bare feet. There was an older brother, but he moved out a few months ago. Now the incident. The mom's boyfriend was visiting this past weekend, being his stompy, shouty, smoky self. My husband and I were exhausted from work, as we both work in the medical field. He's an EMT, I do billing. I just wanted to sleep, but I could hear them talking through the ceiling. Just as I thought they were finally going to bed, bang, bang! 2 loud crashes right above me like they had dropped bricks on the floor. It was late. I was tired. I had had it with their noise, so I went upstairs to ask them to be quiet. This is where I think I might have turned into the jerk. The daughter answered the door. I know she wasn't the one responsible because it came from the master bedroom,
but I told her if they didn't stop the noise, I would go to the apartment manager to have them evicted. She started crying, total crocodile tears, and for some reason that made me angrier. So I upped the threat and said maybe I should call the police with a noise complaint. I wouldn't. That sent her into these over-the-top dramatic sobs. The mom and boyfriend came out at that point and slammed the door in my face. I went back home knowing I'd been rough, but sure I had made my point. A while later, 10 minutes, the boyfriend came and banged on my door and yelled at me that the girl was sure she was going to be homeless because of me. I told him we both knew that won't happen, but maybe he should think about that before doing backflips directly over the bedroom of people who work in a hospital during what's going on. My husband said I owe these people an apology. I believe they deserved it for being awful neighbors. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
You shouldn't have gone off on the daughter like that. She probably hates living with them as much as you hate living underneath them.
I don't work here. You work here. Okay, so starting off, I was a promoter for a company with a wide range of products where I promote their product in another company's store. I'm usually near the front of the store pitching whatever new products my company has to people as they pass by. So the amount of times people coming in and asking me for help is staggering. But most of the time I help because I usually know more or less where everything in the store is, or I know where to find someone who does. Except for when I have to promote at a hardware store, because them chunky boys are huge and full of things I have no clue about. So anyway, on to the story. I'm standing in front of the brushware and cleaning section, promoting a spin bucket mop, when a manager walks up to me with this confused-looking old man trailing behind. Manager: where's the laminate floor cleaner? Me: sorry, I have no clue. I was there for only a week, so I really had no clue. Manager: what do you mean you don't know? This is your section. Me: but I work for the other company, not this store. I was really taken aback by this sudden tirade, so I replied super quietly. Manager: you should know what's in your section. She then looks back at the customer, sighs dramatically, and walks into the aisle to check for herself. How the heck can she be so rude to a customer like that? This poor old man follows her like Karen's unloved toddler while she looks through all the cleaning supplies. Not finding what she's looking for, she tells him she will find someone to assist him, then storms off. I'm left with this poor old man looking around all confused, checking back to his shopping list like it will tell him where to go. 5 minutes passed, so I realize that help is not coming from the manager, so he is well and truly abandoned. I go to the promoter for another company and ask him to help since he worked there for a month already and was friends with the employees. He calls someone to come help, and within seconds, the old man is being led off to another section by an employee. I later find out the manager works at a desk and has zero clue how the rest of the store works. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my story. Am I the jerk for making my roommate's girlfriend dinner? I, 23, male, have lived with Jeff, 24, male, for 2 years. He and his girlfriend Amanda, 24, female, have been dating for a little under a year. So last night, Amanda came over to hang out with Jeff. It was already planned that she was supposed to come over, but then I guess Jeff's boss made him stay late for some reason. Amanda asked me if I'd mind if she hung out to wait for Jeff, and I told her that that was fine with me. She stayed in the living room watching Netflix on our TV, and I was in my room playing a game on my computer. After a while, I came out to the kitchen to make myself some dinner, and Amanda was still on the couch by herself. I asked her if Jeff said when he was getting home, and she said he hadn't texted her back for a while. So I asked Amanda if she wanted some dinner, and she said sure. I made food for both of us, and then felt weird just going back to my room and making her eat by herself. So I sat with her on the couch, and we watched Netflix together for a little bit. Jeff came home and saw us eating dinner, and then was upset at Amanda for not waiting for him. I said that it was my fault. I offered her food because I didn't think he'd be home for a while. Jeff told me to mind my own business, so I said whatever and went back to my room to get back into my game. Jeff and Amanda had a big fight about him being home late and her not waiting to eat dinner with him, and Amanda ended up leaving right afterwards. So then Jeff came into my room to chew me out about having a dinner date with his girlfriend and said that if I had just let her be, they wouldn't have gotten into a big fight and ruined his whole night. I said it would have been rude for me to cook in front of her without offering her anything, and he said it was rude for me to feed her without checking to see when he'd be home. I said he was being ridiculous, and he left my room and hasn't really talked to me since. I thought that he was the jerk for sure,
But then my friends in the game chat wanted to know what was going on, and when I explained, they all took Jeff's side and said it was weird that I took it upon myself to hang out with his girlfriend just because she was in our apartment. I thought I was just being polite, and Jeff was probably just in a bad mood because he had to work late. But now I'm wondering if I actually did something wrong. Am I the jerk here? I think I might be, because everyone is acting like this is an aspect of bro code that I should have known about. If I was in the wrong, then I'll apologize to Jeff for overstepping boundaries. Well, who do you agree with? OP or Jeff? Please let us know. Would I be the jerk if I didn't allow my kids to go to their father's new home? My ex-husband and I have been divorced for 4 years, and we have 2 daughters together. My biggest reason for wanting the divorce was his lack of motivation. It started off as something small, but snowballed into a marriage full of anger and resentment. He's never been independent, which I didn't realize when we first got together because we were so young. So when we split up, he moved in with a friend. It was supposed to be temporary because he was only renting a room in a small house that already had 3 other people and 2 dogs, so there wasn't much room for our kids. There was only 1 bathroom, and they didn't have a bedroom of their own, or even beds to sleep in, so they only spent the night maybe 3 times the whole 3 years he lived there. He was also paying a ridiculous amount, basically half the rent plus utilities, even though his other 2 roommates and their daughter had the other 2 bedrooms. On top of that, his roommates were always drunk and fighting. I was constantly sending him listings of reasonably priced places that would be better for him to live with the kids, but he said he was fine where he was. Now his lease ended and he had to move. So again, I tried helping him find some good places, but he said he could handle it, so I let it go. Well, he decided that to save on rent, he was going to move into a utility shed in his cousin's backyard. Literally a utility shed that they renovated by putting down some flooring, hooking up some outlets and an AC unit, and called it an apartment. There are no windows, no airflows, and no room at all for the kids to play. It's about 14 by 9 feet if I had to guess. Pretty much only enough room for his mattress, dresser, and a small fridge. When he has to use the bathroom, he has to go inside his cousin's house. I thought this was going to be temporary as well because he had to move out so quickly. I figured he just couldn't find a place on time. But the other day, I found out that he bought a brand new 2021 SUV, and his justification was that his rent is so cheap now. But I haven't gotten a child support payment in the last 6 months. If I don't ask, he doesn't pay. It didn't bother me before because I knew he was struggling and the kids are well taken care of, but this just feels like a slap in the face. He has no intentions of moving. I don't want to take him to court because it will literally solve nothing except possibly sending him to jail, and I don't want to keep his kids from him either. Would I be the jerk if I didn't let my kids go to his house, or should I just let them make their own decisions? Edit. Just want to add that I do not mean I would ever take my kids away from their father unless they were in some kind of danger. He's still a good father, and I want them to have a great relationship. He can see them anytime he wants. We don't even follow the custody agreement because we're very civil with each other. My only concern is his living situation. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let them go see him or not? Please let us know. I'm telling your manager you're stealing boxes. This just happened as I was leaving work tonight. Some background. I work in the copy center of the local edition of a major national office supply retail chain. I don't have a car and normally either walk the mile home or try to get a ride with a coworker, as most have to go past my place to get home anyway, and I always ask and never assume. My store manager is currently in the process of moving, and tonight we were leaving at the same time, and I asked him for a ride home. He said it was fine and asked me to help him load some empty boxes we had saved into his pickup to help with the move. So 6 p.m. rolls around. I clock out, put away my radio, put on my coat and grab a cart and head to the office and start loading the boxes into it. Enter self-important Karen.
What are you doing?
Me, helping my coworker with these boxes? Mind you, my coat is open and my uniform shirt and name tag are still visible.
That's stealing. You shouldn't steal boxes from another company.
Background. We're literally the only store that wears red shirts for a good 30-minute drive in any direction. Our plaza also plays home to a national grocery chain with Hawaiian shirts, a salon, and 3 women's clothing stores. There used to be a men's suit store, but it closed due to lockdown. I just scoff and say, whatever, and start wheeling the cart to the front. Karen follows me, and as I get to the door, my general manager and the closing manager are walking up from the other side of the store, talking about general manager's upcoming move. I look to the closing cashier and cheerfully say, "See you Monday, Jay."
I start out the door, and Karen grabs me and starts screeching about me stealing from the store. I immediately look at her and snarl, "You have 5 seconds to get your hands off of me before I call the police." Then she slaps me. Unbeknownst to everyone except the coworker who was closing my department, the town's chief of police was in the store to pick up his Christmas cards that he had ordered. When he heard her screeching, he turned to see the commotion. He saw the slap. So did my GM, the other manager, the cashier, 3 other customers, and the store security cameras. 10 minutes later, Karen is sitting on the curb in front of the store screaming like a possessed banshee with a new pair of bracelets. There's 2 town police cars and a state police cruiser with their lights flashing in the parking lot. And the stuff the chief found in her purse is on the hood of the car. I'm giving the chief my info, and general manager is telling him to take my statement tomorrow when I'm back on the clock. I'm now waiting for my dinner to arrive from the local pizza joint and Cyberpunk 2077 to finish installing on my PC. Update. Just finished giving my statement to the police. She's being charged with assault, driving on a suspended license, and also had a warrant out for failing to meet with her probation officer. Am I the jerk for putting my ex-wife on the no contact allowed list at my grandmother's group home? I, 35 male, was married to Zoe, 32 female, for 6 years. We got a divorce at the beginning of last year. She had thought I was cheating. I wasn't, and cheated in retaliation. I found out and ended things immediately. We didn't have any kids, and the house was mine, so it was a really quick process. Zoe didn't take the divorce well. She wanted to work on things. I believe that there's no coming back from something like that. She told everyone she knew that I had given up on our marriage and abandoned her. That's just a little background on the situation. My grandmother is an amazing woman who needs round-the-clock care due to her deteriorating mental state. Physically, she's probably healthier than any of us, but she has trouble remembering things, if she took meds, shut off the stove, etc. She lives in a really great group home, and I see her often. After our divorce, Zoe asked if she could keep visiting my grandmother, and I said yes. However, I began to realize that Zoe was using my grandmother as a tool to get back in my good graces. She was giving my grandmother framed photos from our wedding to keep on her bedside. She would tell her stories as if the 2 of us were still married. She would give my grandmother messages to give me. Example, Zoe told me to tell you you're the love of her life, etc. It happened for a short time before I contacted Zoe and told her to stop. It was confusing and frustrating for me and my grandmother when I had to constantly be reminding her that Zoe and I weren't married anymore. Zoe stopped for a while, and the only issue we were having was that she had happened to come to visit my grandmother whenever I would be there. My grandmother has a calendar on her wall where I mark down all the days I'm going to come see her. I'm pretty sure my ex was taking photos of it or something. Recently, I began seriously dating a woman, Claire. On my last Zoom call with my grandmother, she was extremely agitated, and when I asked her why, she said she was extremely upset to hear from Zoe that I was throwing away our relationship to date someone else. I had told my grandmother about her a few weeks ago, and she had been extremely happy for us. I called Zoe and told her she wasn't allowed to visit my grandmother anymore. I called the group home and told them not to accept calls or visits from her. My ex-wife says I'm depriving her of a woman she sees as her own blood. I say that this is the last time I'm going to have her emotionally manipulate my grandmother and upset her for Zoe's own selfish reasons. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you agree with, OP or Zoe? Please let us know.
That Zoe sounds like pure evil. Kinda gives me a run for my money.
That time a customer tried using my dead uncle as leverage to bargain. This happened a couple of weeks ago, but it still upsets me when I think about it. My place of work is a family business. My grandfather founded our store. My dad and mom bought it from him, and I'm now working the desk, along with some of my siblings. My mom and dad didn't originally plan to be the sole owners. However, my uncle also was very involved with the business and wanted to go in on it with them. Unfortunately, about 6 months before the deal was supposed to happen, he unexpectedly suffered a stroke and died while walking his dogs. It was so fast, I never got the chance to say goodbye. He was out less than 2 hours after he went down. He was young too, only 42. I was wrecked emotionally for a long time after that. My parents pulled out of the deal and waited another 7 months past the original date to buy the business, both to heal further and to put things in order. My uncle knew codes to safes, passwords to accounts, all that, and when he went, he took all of that with him, so it was really difficult to track everything down. We now have a memorial photo in the store with his death date and a little message about what he's done for the store. Every so often, a customer who met him once will give us their condolences. While I love my uncle and enjoy the memorial picture, Sometimes it really hurts to have someone who barely knew him try to comfort you while you're just trying to work. However, this customer took it a step too far. As soon as she came in, she went to our higher-end product and began to complain that everything was too pricey, that our prices used to be lower. They weren't. Before spotting the memorial photo, she looks towards me and says,
"Oh, your uncle used to bargain with me all the time. It's such a shame."
Because I'm stupid and try to give people the benefit of the doubt, I assume she's just giving a weird kind of condolence. I don't like talking about him in front of strangers, so I switch topics and direct her towards our lower-end goods that are more in her price range. She gives me a weird look and continues on bemoaning our prices and how Uncle would always make them lower for her. Then, out of nowhere, as I'm talking about our mid-range product, she blurts,
"Do you not even care?"
I turn totally stone-faced, thanks face mask, and as calmly as I can, I say, "Of course I do, but unfortunately I can't do anything about it. I don't and cannot negotiate with you." I'd like to say that I blew up and threw her out of the store, but in the end, she settled on 2 lower-end products, and I processed her orders as quickly as I could to get her out of my face. One thing I did do was simply not inform her on a sale we were having on one of her items. Oops, we'll just call that the $50 dead uncle fee. Karen wants me to get rid of my home theater system. We've been together for just over a year, and up until now, things have gone without a hitch. I asked her to move in with me last week, and she was thrilled, as am I. I love her, and living alone is getting old. Over the past few days, she's been moving her stuff in, and I've given her a pretty free hand in redecorating. I'm not particular about that much around my house, and I want her to feel at home. Really, the only thing I am particular about, other than my own office, is the living room entertainment center. I am an AV hobbyist, and I put together a home theater system over the last couple of years. It's nothing crazy. 65-inch LED TV with a 2.1 sound setup, 2 speakers and 1 subwoofer. But everything is of excellent quality and perfectly maintained without a cable in sight. I'm proud of it, and I love watching movies, gaming, and having others over to enjoy it. We were relaxing on the couch after moving some more stuff, and she said that she hates how the sound system looks and wants to get rid of it. This was very confusing to me, as she's been over to my house to watch movies many times and has never mentioned a thing about them. She said that now that this is her home too, she doesn't want to look at those hideous things. The 2 speakers have bronze that shows on them. Fair enough, the bronze isn't to everyone's taste. I put the grills on. Nope, she still hates them. I try to show her other speakers that I may be able to replace them with. Nope, she doesn't want to see any audio gear at all, including the sub as well. And my living room only works with the entertainment center against an exterior wall, so hiding the speakers is out of the question, which is expensive as heck anyway. After a somewhat impassioned discussion, she finally compromises I can have a sound bar. No, absolutely not going to gut the system I built just to put in something crappier in every way. I put my foot down on this issue. She's free to change just about anything else the way she likes, but I love my home theater and I'm not changing it. She's back in her old place right now, ignoring my calls. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
She wants a soundbar instead of a home theater system? Is something wrong with her ears?
Am I the jerk for tricking my ex-husband into letting me adopt his son? I met my ex-husband when I was 21, in the wake of his first wife's passing. It happened while she was giving birth, and I had just lost my best friend. We met at a support group. We became good friends, and I became a regular part of his life. Our relationship was strictly platonic for 2 years. During this time, he seriously dated another woman, but the relationship didn't work out. I was already a part of his family in a way, and I loved his son, Jay. A few months after the breakup, we start dating. We moved really fast, and we were married within a few months. Once we were married, with his first wife's parents' blessings, I took on a more active role with Jay. By the time he was 3, I fully took on the role as his mother. He was bonded to me like he was born out of my own womb. I started feeling those mama bear instincts around him. He called me mom. 3 years go by, and we start having problems in our marriage. I then found out that my husband had been having a full-blown year-long affair with the ex. I found out that she had even gotten pregnant but had lost it. Their plan was to be together, but that loss led to the breakdown of their relationship. I confronted him. He accepted and asked for forgiveness. He swore that he was in a dark place and promised to be better. We slept in separate rooms for 6 months and finally reconciled successfully. For the last 4 years, our relationship has been perfect. For him, he had put the affair behind us, but I wasn't honest about my feelings. The truth was, I was biding time to make my exit plan and to get his first wife's parents to cooperate with me. I then planned a vow renewal ceremony where I officially asked my husband the permission to adopt his son. Again, my son's maternal grandparents were in on the loop. I filed for divorce the day after the adoption became official. My husband thinks I've played a long con and deceived him. I think I did my part to protect my relationship with my son. I had no other option but to wait a few more years to leave because I didn't want the courts or the system to create any problem with the adoption. Am I the jerk? I just want to make it clear that I have no intention of stealing his son away. We will have equal custody. I had no intention of staying in the marriage, but I lied because I didn't want to lose Jay in an eventual divorce. Edit 2. In my divorce petition, we have already stated that divorce was already in the works, and I adopted him right before I filed for divorce because I raised Jay as his mother, and I wanted to establish myself as his legal parent in the wake of the dissolution of our marriage. His maternal grandparents are also fully behind me. I'm not fighting over custody. In my petition, I've already stated that I want my husband to have equal custody, both legal and physical. Well, what do you think? Was OP wrong for what they did or not? Please let us know. My mother threw my sister a party for my 8th birthday. This happened in 1998 when I was 8 years old and my sister was 5. From a very early age, I knew that my younger sister was the golden child and could do no wrong in our mother's eyes. Mother Dearest was horrible towards me for most of my childhood until I was 14, and her mistreatment turned towards my sister as well. My parents had separated before my sister was born. They didn't mesh well together, but tolerated each other for the sake of the kids. Part of the reason that my sister was Mom's favorite child was her love for horse riding, which I was never interested in. The more hostile our mother got towards me, the less interested I got in anything she was interested in. And then came my 8th birthday. I was friends with our next-door neighbor's kids and a few kids from school. Although I didn't have that many, I loved the friends I did have and was excited to share my birthday with them. My birthday was on a Friday, but Mom told me that she'd arrange my birthday party for the Saturday, which was fine by me. The day of my birthday party came, and I got excited. At that age, I hadn't yet had my heart crushed by my mother and her blatant favoritism and mistreatment, but that was the year I began to hate my birthday. The party was arranged to start at 12 p.m., so I wore my favorite dress and sat outside to wait for my friends to arrive. This was the point that I realized that something wasn't right. Outside was the mother of one of my sister's friends with a pony in tow. My mother knew I wasn't interested in horses, and even if I was, this horse was too small for an 8-year-old. As more guests started to arrive, my heart broke more and more. These were my sister's friends, not mine, and for the icing on the cake, out came my 5-year-old sister in a Cinderella costume. None of the people were there for me. This was supposed to be my party, but instead, it became a party for my sister. None of my friends were there. All of the birthday presents were addressed to me, but were things I didn't want. My Little Pony toys and other horse-related gifts were what I got from my mother and the people at the party. The only present I got that wasn't horse-related was from our dad. He came later in the day to wish me a happy birthday, and by that point the other guests and the pony were gone. I can remember him asking me what was wrong, as I wouldn't come out of my room or talk to anyone. My mother acted dumb and said that she didn't know why I was upset. It wasn't until many years later that my dad found out what had happened. After that day, I didn't want a birthday party again. Even now at 30, I don't make a big deal out of my birthday. I still celebrate it, but I don't do birthday parties. My sister has changed a lot since then, and I don't hold any grudges for the things our mother did. We don't speak to our mother anymore, and our father passed in 2009 when I was 19. It's tough sometimes, but me and my sister are really close, so we have each other to lean on for support. I'd be lost if it weren't for her. Am I the jerk for not cleaning while I cook, just to prove a point to my husband? I've always cleaned as I cook, so that when it gets to the end of the meal, there's minimal mess. My husband is the opposite. When he cooks, it's like a bomb went off. I've encouraged him to clean as he cooks, and if we're doing a big meal/holiday meal together, I often make sure to assign him that role. Like most people, one of us cooks, the other one cleans up. I am the better cook, so I cook like 80% of the time. He gets an easy cleanup. I'm busier than usual at work, so he's had to step up. Whenever he's done, the kitchen is a mess. I don't even get how it happens. There will be oil splatters untouched, stuff drying to dishes, peels and meat.
I'm not about to let food sit out overnight, so after I'm done eating, I'll start the process and won't get to really relax much. Last week, I asked if he could please try cleaning as he cooks. He told me, "The rule is one person cooks, the other person cleans." I said, "I get that, but you're leaving me with a huge mess every night." He said, "I just don't have the time to clean up when I'm focused on cooking," knowing full well I'll see him scrolling on his phone. I just got so fed up. So on Sunday, I made a big pot of chili. I didn't clean up as I worked. When I was done, I served him, sat down, enjoyed a beer and dinner. When he finally went into the kitchen, he said, "What the heck? Why is there such a mess?" I said that I was too busy paying attention to the chili to clean up. I started to get ready for bed. He was like, You're just going to leave this here?" And I said, yes. He said he would have to wake up extra early to clean up and that he had to be at work earlier than usual and was supposed to play a game with his friends later that night. So could I just clean up? I said no. I cooked, so he has to clean. 2 days later, he's still upset with me because he ended up not being able to game and told me that he didn't get enough sleep and was exhausted at work. Not to be too snarky, but it's not like he's a surgeon, because I had to prove a point to him. I told him that nothing else seemed to get his attention, and I feel pretty justified. He told me I was being a smug jerk about it and it was childish. Am I the jerk, or is he? Edit. A couple of people asked how we can make so many dishes. It should take 15 minutes, etc. We don't have a dishwasher. There's no room for one, so everything has to be done by hand. Additionally, doing the dishes means cleaning up the counters and stovetop and sweeping the floor, taking out the trash if need be. When I make chili, it's a process starting with dried chilies that I toast, soak, seed, pulverize, etc. Then there's cooking the dried beans. Then there's the onions and garlic and peels, any other veggies, seeding tomatoes, cans of tomatoes, grinding the spices, etc. Then there's grating cheese for the top, etc. It definitely left a ton of dishes and other stuff behind. Edit 2. Sorry guys, I was reading comments as I was at work. I thought this would get like 10 comments tops. So another thing that comes up is, whoever cooks also cleans. But since I cook most of the time, I just don't see that as being also fair to me. I'll end up spending almost every single day after work. I've been ending work at 6 or 7 some days lately, cooking and cleaning. If I had him cook more, I would definitely start to gain weight, and then we'd have another issue altogether. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
We need to find a way to fit a dishwasher in there somewhere.
Manager does a one-off delivery and gets a hilarious review. Manager got a phone call from a takeaway customer to say he hadn't received his food. He agrees to remake and bring food out to him and gets the best review ever. Hello. On December 12th, I ordered my meal from your Bird Box menu via Just Eat. My order was for around 15 pounds and was due to arrive at approximately 6:20 p.m. Unfortunately, this never showed up. After around 20 or so minutes of checking the app, which was left on the status waiting for an update, I could finally see that my order had left the restaurant and was winging its way to me. Excellent, I thought. It's a little late, but it's not really an issue. We're all human, right? After the excitement of seeing the little motorcycle icon get closer and closer to my doorstep, I was very disappointed to see it disappear. OMG, I thought to myself, has he crashed? Has my Tennessee chicken burger met an earlier demise and now strewn all over the road in a sad pile looking worthy of the Turner Prize? Perhaps it was aliens. Had they finally showed their presence after all this time in the middle of sleepy Norfolk, deciding to attack the Just Eat rider whilst tucking into my cheesy ham and bacon fries? I mean, I wouldn't blame them. After all, they are delicious. After eagerly awaiting for another few moments outside in the cold darkness, I sighed and retreated to the living room. I guess the thoughts of a knight in shining armor walking up outside the house like the pizza delivery guy from Home Alone were scorned. However, I would not be beaten. I woefully contacted Just Eat, where I met a friendly, unhelpful bot. The kind of bot you would put in goal at primary school football games because he owned the ball. The bot then politely informed me that the restaurant had added 56 minutes to my delivery time, followed immediately by, "Your order should be delivered in the next few minutes." I know, confusing, right? Perhaps I was witnessing a mirage while stalking the writer on the app. Or did this stupid illiterate jerk just give my gourmet burger to someone else and wish them a Merry Christmas? Turns out it was the latter. After being advised by the helpful bot once more, I contacted the restaurant directly via telephone. After explaining my dilemma to the waitress who had the task of taking my call, I was then put through to a chap named Manager who holds a managerial position at the restaurant. Manager is not your average Joe, or average manager for that matter. Not only was he extremely apologetic, he was also empathic, whilst carefully taking in every word of my sad Christmas tale. Manager, realizing I was in a state of terrible peril and hunger, quickly donned his cloak and cap, personally delivering me a fresh piping hot meal. An act of great kindness which he did not have to do, nor should he have to compensate for, just eats rubbish service. But he did, and with great professionalism. Not all heroes wear capes. Thank you, and Merry Christmas to your team at the workplace. Please make sure this feedback lands on the desk of at least one big cheese in a tailor-made suit. Without staff like Manager, there would be no board meetings nor timeshares in Spain. Give me a raise or replace me. Almost a decade ago, I worked in a call center doing over-the-phone tech support. I worked there for almost 7 years until I was fired because the desk phone they issued me malfunctioned for 6 weeks straight, despite my continued twice-a-week complaints. They didn't even try to appeal my unemployment either. Anyway, I started there in 2008, and by 2010, I had switched from a customer service role to a tech support role, and then moved into a more senior tech support role, which did not come with extra pay. My job consisted primarily of calling customers back who had an issue that normal tech support was unable to resolve. If I had time, I was expected to help call back customers who left dissatisfied surveys as well. I was also given certain blocks of time during the week to monitor the interdepartmental chat room to help answer questions. I also had a lot of documentation to do to keep track of everything I did and said to a customer. I take pride in my work. Once I learned the ins and outs of the system, I became rather competitive. Each survey or escalation had an associated ticket. We were expected to close 60 tickets per month per person. This equated to just under 3 per day. In order to close a ticket, we either had to resolve their issue or at least note their additional survey feedback, escalate their issue to the corporate office to die, more on that later, or leave 3 voicemails over 3 days and send them an email. Once I was comfortable with what I was doing, my goal became not to close the most tickets, but to absolutely destroy everyone else and how many I got done. The minimum was 60 per month, and there were a couple of people in our 12-person department who never broke 100 and were normally doing 50 to 70 a month. Most people were in the 100 to 200 range, a few sometimes getting up to 250. I regularly did 400 or more every month for almost 3 years. I had days where I would make 75 phone calls a day. I also monitored the chat room, often more often than required, wrote articles for our internal database, helped our slowest members with paperwork, answered incoming frontline emails if they were behind, and had low-level agents directly transfer live customers to me rather than escalating them if I knew I could resolve their issues right away. Towards the end of that 3 years, I also began helping out another department that dealt with customers who mailed their device in for repair. It wasn't that I was so much smarter than everyone or ridiculously good at troubleshooting, I'm just organized and driven. When we had a slow month where almost nobody called us at all, I only did 125 tickets and read probably 7 hours a day. I read Stephen King's Dark Tower series in a week, entirely at work. The company I worked for, the one who signed my paychecks, was a contract company owned by a big multinational out of Canada. They took contracts from companies like DirecTV, Comcast, and USAA. I found out the company I was doing contracted work for paid my company $35 an hour for my time, but I only saw $10.50 of that. I also was almost never allowed overtime, maybe 1 to 2 weeks a year for the entire 7 years. First-level leaders were salaried out, and if they didn't work any overtime, made about $12.70. I heard that the next level leader made about $60,000 a year, and the building director double that. The company that made the product I was troubleshooting was like a dumpster fire. They sold a product that developed a hardware issue, which they knew was a hardware issue, but they forbid us from telling a customer that and instead told them that we were working on a software update. Despite being primarily in the USA, our website only offered user manuals in Spanish, and the website developer claimed that it was impossible to add a new tab for user manuals to the website. A coworker recoded the website, hosting new pages on a personal server and linking every outside link, like to another part of the website, in just 45 minutes and presented it to our corporate office. Our warranty only allowed for repair. We would not ship out a replacement device and would not provide any sort of loaner device. Minimum repair time was 3 weeks,
and the customer was responsible for shipping the device in, including paying for shipping and a box. If it got lost on the way, it wasn't our problem. Apparently, our repair center decided that first in, first out wasn't a convenient system for processing the repairs, so they just pulled however they felt like it. I had the pleasure of calling customers who had mailed their devices in over a year prior because it wouldn't even power on to tell them that it was now out of warranty and we no longer had any parts to repair it anyway, and would they like for us to mail it back to them. Now comes the malicious compliance. The first came in when the company tried to launch an in-house made data backup service. It was extremely poorly developed and failed miserably. Much better and free systems existed, and even if the company's system had worked flawlessly, it had no benefits that I could see. When we started receiving complaints that it was not working, our corporate office told us to just immediately escalate to them. Don't even troubleshoot. I knew nothing was ever going to come of that, of letting cases just trickle in. I knew that corporate would just let them die. So I came in one day and I took all of the pending cases for issues with the backup service and entered them into the ticket service program. Now this is where it got really good. At the time, when you created a ticket, it would send you 3 emails by the time you had finished. That's before leaving notes or closing it, just entering information. I knew this, and I knew I could change the responsible person on the ticket from myself to the person at corporate in charge of this issue at the beginning instead of assigning it to them at the end. I entered 128 tickets for that issue alone that night. I was working second shift at the time. It only took me a few hours. I had plenty of time to do real work after that. That means the person at corporate who was supposed to handle these cases came into work the next day with over 350 new emails in their inbox. When I got to work the following day, I was told we were no longer escalating those issues and instead just telling customers that we were working on fixing it. Those customers never got called back, and the person at corporate later lost their job because they barely ever got anything done. My last malicious compliance came when they started letting people work from home. They did this to save on operating costs as they expanded the workforce. By moving associates to work from home, this was 2012, they didn't have to pay for electricity or as much bandwidth, etc. If you worked from home, you were issued a terminal and keyboard/mouse and a phone. You had to supply a monitor and the system was a virtual machine. When an opportunity came up to switch to work from home, I put in for it. They moved people in groups as they purchased new equipment. When they found out that I wanted to work from home, they tried to talk me out of it because I wouldn't be able to do escalations and surveys at home. I would have to be frontline tech support again. I asked if I could have a raise then. I was already topped out and I knew I would never get a raise ever. They said no, so I chose to work from home. My main reason for working from home was actually money. I didn't get a pay cut and I was spending a lot of money on gas because I lived 25 miles from work and gas was over $4 a gallon at the time. Working from home was like 50 cents an hour raise because I was spending $20 a week on gas. Working from home was also great for me because I could work in my pajamas and didn't waste over an hour driving to and from work. I never understood why they wouldn't let me do what I had been doing before from home. I had all the same tools at home as in the call center. When I left my old department to work from home, I was doing at least 25% of the work for the entire department. I was closing 400 and 500 tickets a month and still wasting an hour or two every day. They ended up needing to move 3 people into the department to replace me. I stayed with the company for 3 years after that, mostly because the work was easy and I wasn't particularly motivated to find something better. I ended up getting fired in the end. Like I said, they issued me a desk phone. It was like a landline phone, but had an LCD screen with some configurable options on it, and you could plug in a headset and it worked over the internet. About 6 weeks before I got fired, my phone started having an issue where it would drop calls. Normally it would ring and you would press answer, but it started having an issue where it would ring once, or half a ring, or sometimes nothing at all, and then hang up on the customer. Sometimes it would then place me in a state where I couldn't take calls again until I pressed a button on the phone. I notified my supervisor immediately when it first happened and continued to do so twice a week over the next 2 weeks. Despite my repeated complaints, I was told to just watch it, and she refused to send me out a replacement. A week before I was fired, I was working on a day when my supervisor was not. A different supervisor saw that I was in this unavailable state, and despite me telling him that it was my desk phone and that it had been happening for weeks, insisted on giving me a formal verbal warning. When my supervisor came in the next day, she immediately called me and told me she was upgrading my verbal warning to a final written warning. The company, like many, had a 4-step system of a verbal, written, final written warning, and then termination. She gave no reason for why she was upgrading it to a final written. A few days later, I noticed that one of my tools was not working correctly, but managed to struggle through until lunchtime when I restarted my terminal. After lunch, when I restarted, I was unable to log back in. I immediately texted my boss. We had to clock out for lunch. I didn't want to be in more trouble, and I didn't want to be underpaid either. I then called our help desk, but I was back on second shift, so it was after-hours support, and they were unable to help me. It was a Friday night, and they said that normal help desk personnel wouldn't be available until Monday morning. I hung up and called my boss instead. It went to voicemail. I continued to try to reach out to my boss Saturday, Sunday, and Monday via text, phone, and email. I had been scheduled to work all weekend. I normally had days off in the middle of the week, but couldn't do so as I was unable to log into my terminal or phone. Monday morning, I called the help desk again and was told that I wasn't part of the company anymore, but there was no reason listed as to why. My boss finally reached out to me on Wednesday via text and said that I had been fired for call avoidance. I filed for unemployment. It was denied, but when I appealed, the company didn't even have someone call into the phone interview, so I won by default. I was on unemployment for 6 weeks before starting at my current job. Since then, I've gotten 2 promotions and am currently making more than double what I made at my old job. To top it all off, last year the company lost a class action lawsuit for making people sign into their terminals and open software before clocking in. They didn't want to pay people for those 5 or so minutes a day, and they lost millions of dollars. I got a check for a few $100 out of it, which was a nice touch. Karen mother-in-law demands a key to my house. My wife and I recently moved into a new house because my wife wanted to be closer to her parents. I agreed as long as we had an understanding that this didn't mean they would just be stopping over unannounced and that we still had to maintain boundaries with them. We found a house about 30 minutes from where my in-laws live, and I figured that would give us enough of a buffer so that they would have to let us know whenever they wanted to stop by. My wife completely agreed to this before we moved. A couple of weeks after we moved in, my wife texted me while I was at work to tell me that her mom wanted to drop off some items for our kids at the house. I told her I was unable to leave work to let her in, but reminded her that we had hidden a spare key in case of emergencies and that we should tell her mom where it is. Mother-in-law found the key and got in, but I was already kind of frustrated that mother-in-law wasn't respecting our boundaries, but I figured I could always hide the key in a different spot later so that mother-in-law wouldn't keep using it. So that's what I did. I hid the key in a different location and showed my wife where it was in case she ever needed it. Not even 2 weeks later, my mother-in-law texted me while I was at work saying that she was at our house again and couldn't find the spare key. I told her that I had moved it and that she would have to wait until either my wife or I come home for us to let her in. She kept texting me and trying to call me, but I didn't answer her calls and texted her that I was at work and was unable to help her. When I got home that night, my wife was upset with me that I wouldn't tell mother-in-law where the spare key was and tried to convince me that we should just give them a key so that it wouldn't be a hassle. I told her I didn't want them to have a key because mother-in-law has already proven she doesn't respect our boundaries. I also reminded my wife that she had agreed to all of this when we moved and that I was getting frustrated that both her and mother-in-law seemed to be disregarding my feelings on this so quickly after we moved in. I told her that the spare key was for emergencies, not for mother-in-law to use whenever she decided she wants to come to our house. My wife got kind of huffy and said that I was purposely trying to push her family away. I told her that I was trying to maintain boundaries that we had both agreed on. She had started making passive-aggressive comments to me about asking my permission to have her parents over. I told her this was exactly the kind of situation I was worried about before we moved, and her behavior is starting to make me regret agreeing to it. I told her that I agreed to move closer for her, and all I ask is that she respects some very simple boundaries, but she's acting like a child about it. Both her and mother-in-law now think I'm being a jerk, but I think they are steamrolling boundaries and hoping that I will cave. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
If I still had a mother, she'd be over here all the time.
Thank God you don't, Karen. Thank God you don't. I recruited an unwitting army to annoy a jerk. Back in the early 90s, my friend, I'll call him Lou because that's his name, was selling his RX-7 via an ad in the old print Auto Trader. It came out every Thursday, so that first weekend was critical for sales. The very first guy that came to see it on Saturday said he wanted to buy it after driving it. Of course, he had to finance, so they couldn't finish the sale during the weekend. Lou was worried about losing all the bites from the new ad, so he asked for a deposit of $500. The guy wrote a check. Lou told the rest of the callers that weekend that it was sold and, unfortunately, didn't ask for their numbers in case it fell through. This story predates caller ID availability in my area by a couple of years, so these leads were gone. As you surely expect by now, the guy flakes on Monday and Lou deposits the check. Payment stopped. Big surprise. Sitting around my apartment, we schemed revenge, but all we had to go on was the check. Lucky for karma, there was a phone number printed on it. Our first idea was to write a little program to dial his number repeatedly from my modem, but that would be easily stopped and probably get us in direct trouble. Then Lou got a page from his work. This was back in the one-way pager days. You call the pager's dedicated phone number, it sounds a tone, then you punch digits for the number you want to be sent to the pager. The person with the pager receives the number you entered and, presumably, calls it. Everyone with a pager made sure that people who needed to get a hold of them had the number for their pager. You'd see pager numbers in print and TV ads all the time for various services. Boom! Angelic choir sings. Heavenly light goes off. Lou's pager number and my pager number had the same prefix, middle 3 digits. What if we randomly dial numbers with that prefix and page them all to this guy's number? So we order a pizza, open some beers, and start looking through the yellow pages at locksmiths and tow truck services to find more pager prefixes. We wind up with a dozen or so. After that, it's half an hour of coding in ye old Borland C++. I put together a program that would cycle through our list of known prefixes and add a random final 4 digits to get a random pager. It calls the pager's number, pauses, then dials this jerk's number, and throws a 911 suffix on there for good measure, which is something people with pagers understand to indicate an emergency of some kind. The whole thing was just generating different strings of numbers with different pager prefixes. The commas made pauses since you'd need to connect to the paging service before you can enter the message. Make string, send to modem, wait for no carrier, hang up, repeat. We start eating the pizza and let it fly. I was very picky about my devices, so my modem was a US Robotics Courier. You could set an S register to control how long it would sound each tone when dialing. Uber nerds like myself would keep tinkering with that to get as fast as possible while still being recognized by the phone service. It was very fast. It could run through 4 pages per minute, so this guy would get 240 calls an hour. We just watched it run and laughed our butts off. We realized pretty early on that we didn't really know if it was working, so we wandered down to the 7-Eleven and called him from a payphone, just in case he could somehow trace it or the popo were on the case and watching. A man answered and I said, "Hello, I got a page at this number." I heard an audible sigh and then he just hung up. Gold. We ended up running it for a few hours, then let it go quiet for a few days. Then we scheduled it to start dialing the middle of the night every few nights. Plus, we'd fire it up by hand randomly whenever we had a party. We checked again from the 7-Eleven after a week and it went to an answering machine, which did the rapid tone at the end of the greeting to indicate the tape was full. We reasoned that the line was still ringing anyway, so we kept at it for another month or so. Eventually, we got the disconnected warning when we made one of our regular checkups. I'm sure he just changed the number. I like to think about that guy answering the phone after a few days of silence when we started it up. I can vividly imagine his response at the "Did someone page me to this number?" as he slams the phone down and then it rings again a few seconds later. Or, of course, coming home from work and having an answering machine full of random people asking about being paged. And yeah, we annoyed several thousand people into calling this guy by the end, but each of those people was only put out for a single call. A cost? Yes, but a necessary one for justice. Have you ever heard of a pager before this story? Or did you have no clue what it was? Please let us know.
Oh, I bet none of them knew. Whether or not they'll admit it in the comments is another question.
Karen tries to get my pet duck put down. I live in a pretty nice neighborhood in a townhome. There's an overflow nearby my house that's about 30 seconds away from my house. My neighbor from across the street has pet ducks that she had kept in her garage until they could live without needing the heat lamp. The day she let the little ducks out to the overflow, they walked straight to my front door and stayed until I followed them to the little overflow pond. This was when I fell in love with them. Their names are Walden and Delilah. Walden is a super social duck, but he was born pigeon-toed. I think y'all can see where this is going. At the time, Walden was pretty sick with lead poisoning, but he was healing really well and was quickly regaining strength. The owner of the ducks, we'll call her DL, had given me the role of their uncle as I had been with them since the beginning, so I had the important job of always keeping watch of them when she wasn't. One day, my mom shouted that there was a large gathering of people at the pond, so I ran to see what was going on. A police officer was slowly approaching Walden while Karen was next to him. The instant I saw that, my heart sunk and slowly moved to the front of the small crowd. The police officer picked up Walden and held him in a baby hold and looked towards the crowd. Officer, is this anyone's duck? Me, terrified. Yes, sir. Their name is Walden. Officer, what's wrong with the duck? Me, they have lead poisoning. The main owner is giving them treatment from the vet. Karen, in the stereotypical Karen voice.
I thought it had a broken leg because it was moving weird.
The officer then proceeded to swing Walden and hold him upside down by the legs. Poor Walden started trying to get free, and Delilah was looking up at the cop and quacking. At this rate, I was shaking with anger and fear, but I didn't want to risk anything with the cop. The Karen then had the audacity to pity my baby because he had such terrible owners. Out of some miracle, one of DL's kids pulled up and practically flew out of their car. DL's son, what the heck are you doing? Cop, is this yours? Swings Walden forward, still holding him by the legs. DL's son, yes, now put him the heck down. The officer then proceeded to drop Walden, and Delilah ran up and did the closest thing to a hug that a duck can do. DL's daughter then came running up from her house with DL on the phone. After she came, I could hear DL chewing the officer out, and the phone wasn't even on speaker. When I got home, I collapsed and just kinda cried. It was so stressful. Aftermath. DL and I both happened to meet at the pond when going to check on Walden. She tells me in no uncertain terms what she would have done to that cop if she was there, and we just laughed the incident off. She thanked me for speaking up and told me that Walden would have most likely been put down. Well, that's my story. Sorry if it wasn't the best format-wise. I'm writing this on my phone, and it's my first post on Reddit. I am doing my job. It's just not with this company. I'm a security guard. With everything going on, we've gotten a lot of new companies and contracts, and there have been several stores that hire my company for mask enforcement, basically refusing service for anyone who tries to walk in without a facial covering. This event took place at one of those new contracts for a home improvement job, one that promises that you can save big money shopping here. My job at this location is extremely simple and narrow. If I see someone walk in without a mask, I stand between them and the gate, inquire as to their lack of a mask, and give them the option of purchasing one for less than 50 cents at the nearby customer service desk if they do not have one of their own. For the most part, people are kind and understanding. Many of them apologize, saying they forgot, and quickly dig out a mask from their pocket or a purse and go on about their way. One day, however, I met the Karen. Lineup. We've got me. We've got customer service employee. We've got the manager, and we've got the Karen. I had just stopped an elderly gentleman and asked if he had a mask. He laughed, pulled it out of his pocket, saying he always forgets, put it on, and walked through the turnstile. As I'm having the conversation with him, in walks Karen, staring me down, no mask, and almost runs into the elderly gentleman as she tries to rush past me. I, however, step in her way with a kind smile. Hello, ma'am. Do you have a mask today?
No, and I don't need one either.
Me. I'm sorry. However, the store policy states that everyone is required to wear one. If you need one, you can get one over there, pointing to customer service desk, for just 42 cents.
I told you, I don't need a mask. I just need a washing machine. Where are they?
Me. I don't know where the washing machines are. However, I can't let you pass this point without a mask. Please either get one on or see the customer service desk to purchase one.
What do you mean you don't know where the washing machines are? What kind of incompetent worker are you?
Me. I'm not an employee of this store. I work for a third-party security company. I do not know the store, but you cannot go through these gates without a mask. During this time, Karen tries to walk around me multiple times. I keep stepping in front of her, keeping my hands low and calmly repeating, "You need a mask." Karen.
You obviously work here, and I don't like your attitude. Either tell me where I can get a washing machine or get the heck out of my way.
Me, pointing to the employee. They will be more than happy to help you find what you need, as well as sell you a mask so that you can shop here. At this point, the employee realizes that something isn't right, as for the most part as a guard, I smile and wave, pace, and don't really interact with customers. So when I'm no longer smiling, standing still, and speaking with a customer, this usually means that something is going wrong. Employee. Hello, what can I do to help you today? Me. She's looking. Karen.
I want a washing machine, and he refuses to tell me where they are. He just keeps getting in my way and telling me to wear a mask.
Employee: I'm sorry, but he does not work within the store. His job is just to enforce the mask rules. I would be more than happy to help you. Do you have a mask today?
No, I don't have one, and I'm not wearing one.
Some long-winded rant about HIPAA and her rights. Employee: Well, ma'am, he won't let you in without one, and unless you have one, I would be unable to assist you in getting the washing machine you want. Karen:
I've had enough. Get me your manager, now.
Employee then gets on her walkie and radios for a manager to come up. Manager: Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm doing horrible. Your employees are useless, refuse to help me, and won't even let me in the store. I demand you fire them both.
Manager: I'm sorry, but he, pointing to me, is not an employee here. We hired his company to enforce mask policies.
Karen: I've already told you, I won't wear one. Now, fire these people and help me get my washing machine.
At this point, she is escalating more and more and is getting very close to the manager, which triggers my training. Normally, I'm not allowed to go hands-on. However, there is an exception when there is a significant threat of violence to myself or employees of the company I'm working at, and it's starting to appear as if some violence may happen. Me: Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down and please back away from the manager. We don't want any physical contact.
I'm not talking to you. You're about to be fired anyway. You might as well go home already.
Manager: He's not going to be fired. He's doing his job. And I would be more than happy to take you to our washing machines, but you need to get a mask first. Another 5-minute argument during which I'm forced to stand between the manager and Karen as she's getting more and more aggressive. The manager took this chance to motion for an employee to call the police. Manager: At this point, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I won't have you yelling at our security or refusing to follow our policies. Karen:
I'm not leaving until you fire this jerk and I get my washing machine. And get out of my way. Don't you know it's rude to get between two people talking?
Manager: He's doing his job, making sure nothing happens. We have called the cops. Leave now. About 5 minutes later, the cops arrive, with Karen screaming that we assaulted her when all she wanted to do was get a washing machine. And even after the police reviewed the camera footage, she held to her story. As they attempted to trespass her from the store, she swung at me and luckily missed. That, however, was enough for her to leave the store in handcuffs. I'm not sure why she thought I was an employee. My uniform is gray and black with a bright red logo, and the store's uniform is a lot of blues and greens. But all's well that ends well, with Karen in the back of a police car. Have you seen anybody lose it over having to wear a mask or not? And if so, what store was it in? Please let us know.
Every time I go to Costco.
Am I the jerk for being upset with my son for saying I don't appreciate my wife? Okay, I don't think I'm in the wrong here, but a few family members have jumped on my case about it, so I figured I'd post here on my brother's suggestion. I, 40, male, have a son I'll call Jake, 17, and a daughter I'll call Annie, who's 15. Their mom passed away 8 years ago, and I remarried my wife Kate, 38, female, 5 years ago. My kids actually really like Kate, so it's not a problem between them. So here's the issue. Kate does all of the Christmas shopping. I'm very busy as I work a lot of hours usually. Kate works full-time, but less hours, so she also does the majority of the house stuff. The last few years, I haven't gotten Kate anything for Christmas. It just doesn't occur to me since she does all the shopping. She mentioned before that it hurts her feelings, and I always apologize, but it isn't something I really think about, so it ends up happening again. I saw Jake wrapping a gift yesterday and asked who it was for, assuming it was for a friend. He said that he and Annie had pulled some money together and gotten Kate a gift for Christmas this year. I told him that was sweet, but they shouldn't waste their money on gifts for adults. He got upset at that and told me that it wasn't wasting money, that he and Annie just wanted to show her some appreciation since I don't. I said Kate shouldn't be telling him these things, and if she had a problem, she needed to deal with me directly. But Jake cut me off and said Kate never said a word, but they had eyes. They could see that she was the only one without a gift on Christmas morning, and she was the only one who ever cleaned up and did the shopping. I got really angry that he said that, but Jake talked over me, saying how despite Kate working full-time, I still expected her to take care of them, do all the household stuff, do all the shopping, and even then I wasn't happy. I always found something to complain about. Said that even though I knew it hurt her to be discarded, even though she's the one who put in all the work, I still couldn't do something as simple as buy something off Amazon or stop by the store and pick out a card. It wasn't like Kate was high maintenance or had expensive tastes. She just wanted to be acknowledged, and he was surprised she stayed with me with how unappreciative I was. I told him he was being extremely rude to me and left to cool down. I spoke to my brother, who said that Jake was right. I was a jerk who didn't appreciate Kate and that it wasn't like Christmas was a surprise. It was the same date every year and I had plenty of time to plan for something. I actively chose not to, and it was a real jerk move to try and tell my kids they shouldn't care about her feelings just because I don't. I don't think that judgment is fair at all. Of course I care about her. It's just not something I think about. He suggested I post on here since I think my son's being a jerk and he thinks I'm the one being the jerk. So you decide. Who's the jerk here? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his son? Please let us know.
His kids actually sound very thoughtful. I'm glad they're sticking up for Kate.
Am I the jerk for telling my wife to grow up and staying Christmas with our daughters at my parents' without her? My wife, who's 40, and I, who am 42, male, together for 23 years, married for 17. We have 4 daughters together. Our relationship is good. We don't fight and we don't have any major issues. When we had our oldest, we decided that she would stay at home with her and our future kids. It worked well until last year. As our daughters got older, they didn't need that much attention from her. It caused some problems. She was used to being a full-time mom, but our daughters are quite independent for their ages, so she got a lot of free time on her hands and didn't know what to do. We discussed things, and I told her that this would be a good time for her to finish her master's degree, but she wasn't very keen on that, so she joined the gym and a few book clubs. Then our oldest introduced her to TikTok, and she got addicted to that. She started posting stuff about our private life. But hey, she wasn't bored, and she was happy, so I went along. I even participated in a few. Then she started doing pranks on me. It was particularly funny because I got scared very easily. The pranks started to get more elaborate. I told her to stop, and we had a lot of heated arguments about this. In March, I was taking a bath. She got into the bathroom and dumped a bucket of ice on me while recording the whole thing. I freaked out, got up very fast, slipped, and hit my head pretty hard on the tub. I am a big guy, 6'4", 248 pounds, so it was pretty bad. I woke up in a hospital 2 days later. Apparently, I got a hematoma from the accident and had to get brain surgery. I had to stay in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. I'm still doing physiotherapy sessions and don't have total control of my left arm. After the accident, the previously good relationship that my wife had with my family, my mom has 3 sons. I'm the oldest, and we started dating very early, so my wife was the daughter that my mom never had. Took a pretty big hit. They got into a few fights with her, and I had to step in and ask everyone to calm down a bit. Onto the issue. My wife and I alternate holidays between her family and mine. One year we go to Christmas with her family, the next one we stay with my parents. This year, we're supposed to stay with my parents, but she doesn't want that. My family still makes some snarky comments, and my brothers are pretty passive-aggressive with her. She doesn't want to go to my parents this year because of that. I told her that I am going with or without her. She told me that I can't take our daughters without her. We got into a fight, and I told her that I am going. She told me that she won't drive me there. I can't drive since the accident. I called my brother, and he's okay with driving us there. Our daughters are very excited to see my parents. We got into a fight, and she is currently not speaking with me. Her sisters think I am a jerk, and that I'm being too harsh on her because the lockdown was hard on her. I told a coworker about this, and he's on the fence. So, Reddit, am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
I think I'm going to start pranking you, Mr. Reddit.
Am I the jerk for not giving my employees a holiday bonus this year? I own and operate my own small business. I currently have 10 employees working for me, and in the past, I've given everyone a holiday bonus at the end of the year. Even with everything that has gone on in the past year, my business has done very well, and we are on pace to have an increased profit of almost 10% compared to last year. I have asked a lot of my employees this year, and they have met or exceeded all of my expectations. I am incredibly proud of the work they have done. However, even though my business has done well, I have incurred a lot of personal expenses and debt this year that I had not planned for. I had some health problems and also went through an emotionally, mentally, and financially exhaustive divorce. So even with the increased profit from my company, I will be taking in less money than I did last year, whether or not I give out bonuses. I recently had a meeting with my number 2 at my company and explained this to him. I told him that I would not be able to give out bonuses this year and told him it would probably be better if he told everyone, since he has a better relationship with the employees and sees them all day to day. He said he understands where I'm coming from, but he refused to be the one to give them the news. He said that it's my company and I'm free to treat my employees however I want, but he will not be turned into the bad guy because of a decision I am making on my own. He said that many of the employees know that the company is on a better pace than last year, so it's not unreasonable of them to expect the same bonus or even a better one than before. I told him I have to look out for myself as well, and I've had a tough year. He said it was unfair of me to punish my employees for my personal problems. He also said he wouldn't be surprised if this caused a permanent rift between me and the employees and that some will probably look elsewhere for work as a result. I want to believe that my employees will be understanding of the situation and will continue to be loyal based on our past working history and not the short term. In the past, I would use my wife as a barometer for this kind of decision, but when I reached out to her to get her opinion, she called me a greedy jerk who can't see beyond his own problems. I will admit there is a fair amount of acrimony between the two of us right now, so I feel that probably played into what she said, and I don't think she sees this the same way she would have before the divorce. I need to make a final decision on this quickly, and I'm leaning towards not giving out bonuses like my gut tells me to. But would that make me a jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know. Karen and company want to pet my service dog. This happened yesterday, and while, as usual, many people will call me a jerk, I still don't feel bad about it. I'm on my way home from work and decide that I need to do my grocery shopping then because I'm exhausted and know I won't get out again once I get home. Important to note at this point, for those that don't know, I have a service dog in training, Sadie, that goes everywhere with me. So I was in the membership version of America's most popular store and browsing to see what groceries I'd need for the month when I hear the familiar high-pitched squeal of an entitled kid. Now this isn't an uncommon occurrence, as anyone who's seen my dog will tell you that she's absolutely adorable. Half Great Pyrenees, half Catahoula leopard dog, 7 months old and about 65 pounds. She knows better than to interact with people at this point, but she does as she's trained as she sees the kid running up and puts herself between myself and the kid, not really in a guard stance, but sideways between myself and the kid, and touching the back of my leg so I know where the person is approaching from. In this case, I already knew, but I still turned around and gave her a treat. She's still learning after all, and told her to heel. She does as she's told, and the kid slows and comes to a stop now that I'm between him and Sadie. We've got entitled mom, and we've got the kid. Kid: your dog is so cute. I want to pet it. Me: I'm sorry, but see the vest with the patches she's wearing? It says service dog, do not touch. That means she's working right now and can't be distracted. I don't really like kids much beyond my niece and nephew, so I'm not good at telling ages and didn't know if he could read. I figured he knew to obey signs though, so I thought if I told him what it said, he'd understand. Nope. Entitled kid: what's a service dog? She doesn't look busy. Just one pet? He's not being rude, just sounds more curious than anything, so I don't really mind explaining, and I notice a woman push her cart up behind him, so I assume she's his mom, and I feel a bit more relaxed about the situation. Me: a service dog is a dog that helps people do things. There are all types of jobs dogs can do, but they can't be distracted because their owners need them to pay attention to only them in case something happens. Kid: but she's just sitting there right now. If she's not gonna get back to work, you should let me pet her. Now at this point, I should have noticed the "if she's not gonna get back to work" red flag and guessed he was being raised by a Karen. But honestly, I've really only dealt with a few Karens in my life and didn't think much of it, just that he was a kid being annoying. Me to his mom: ma'am, could you please explain it to him? I don't have kids, so I'm not too good at this. I was admittedly probably sounding annoyed in all honesty, but I was still trying to be polite, and I don't think I was being unreasonable here. But she seemed to take offense. Entitled mom: why? He just wants to pet her. It's not a big deal, and he's been acting really good today, and he deserves a treat. I don't see why you won't let him pet her. Me, definitely annoyed now: ma'am, she's a working dog. She couldn't be distracted. I don't mean to be rude, but you're also not wearing masks, and she could get sick. I'd really prefer no one mess with her. We're in Texas, and I'm pretty sure everyone has heard how many people are sick right now, but the majority of people still refuse to wear masks, and of all the shops I've been to, only one store still has a no mask, no entry rule. Shout out to Skechers. Thanks for being proactive. Entitled mom: oh, you're one of those people. Insert eye roll. Just let him pet the stupid dog so we can move on. The stupid sickness is over with. Everything is open now. Me: I think we're done here. And I just turn and walk off, keeping Sadie in my sight just in case. It should have ended there. She should have just told her kid I was a jerk or something and moved on. But if she did, I wouldn't be posting this. Instead, she leaves her cart behind, walks up behind me, and grabs my shoulder. It's at this point I should mention that I have Sadie because of my PTSD. Now, usually it's controllable. I'm on meds to help with anxiety, and I'm in therapy and don't usually have a problem. Heck, I even love music festivals and raves, and have only had a problem one time when I was trying to leave EDC early and got stopped at the gate because they were about to set off fireworks, and something about the bangs and being close enough to feel the vibrations of that many fireworks got to me. I guess with everything that's been going on and not having to worry about people randomly grabbing me and stuff, I'd kinda let my guard down a bit. This set me off though, and without even thinking, I grabbed her hand and spun around, twisting her arm and pushed her as hard as I could, sending her sprawling to the ground. "What the heck is wrong with you?" I yelled, and I said some other stuff, but I was mad and honestly don't remember what I said. Something about no means no, and I don't want her nasty hands on me. At this point, Sadie had gotten between us and her stance and had begun to bark, loudly and repetitively, as she's been trained so she can get someone's attention. I noticed that Sadie was off her leash because somehow the kid had gotten in front of my cart and unhooked it. Luckily, Sadie is the best girl and doesn't need a leash to do her job. She never even thought about running and just stood in front of me barking. Stupid kid was crying after seeing what happened to his mom and getting scared that the cute puppy was now looking pretty darn mean. Now, Sadie wouldn't hurt a fly, but this woman didn't know that, and Sadie has a very intimidating bark. Without even standing up, this woman was scrambling to get back from her and grabs at her cart to stand up. Of course, employees start running to see what's going on, and when one gets there, she asks what's going on. Entitled Mom.
"This man's dog tried to attack me. I was just trying to get his attention and it bit me."
Now, I've browsed this sub enough to know where this was headed, and I wasn't in the mood. Me. Look, just call the cops and grab the camera footage. I'm not gonna play the he said, she said game. The employee calls for the manager, who calls the cops, and asks us to come to the front office to get things sorted out. We start to head toward the front office, but once there, Entitled Mom says she doesn't have time for this and has places to be and just walks out of the store. No one tries to stop her, but the manager looks at the footage and prints off her face to put on the banned people wall, and when the cops arrive, they say there's nothing they can do since she already left. I got employee discount for my food, which was nice, but left in a pretty bad mood because of the interaction. After getting home, I gave Sadie a small slab of steak for being such a good girl, and I just took a shower and went to bed. Didn't get anything done that I needed to, but it had been a long day, and I was extra annoyed. So that's it. Sadly, no real repercussions for Karen, other than maybe a bruiser or two where she hit the tiles and a traumatized kid. But if this sub is any indication, Karens don't learn from stuff like that. Here's hoping the kid learned a thing or two, at least.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.